Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Hope you had a great weekend. Welcome to a Monday edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. The Winnipeg Jets' longest road trip of the season is over, kinda. The team is back in the Peg and will play the St. Louis Blues tomorrow, and then is right back out on the road as they continue a bizarre portion of the schedule with 15 consecutive games in 15 different cities. The team will be back for a more extended stay in Winnipeg next week. But we do, unfortunately, have to, for the first time all season long, talk about a little bit of a lull by the hockey club. 2 tough one-goal losses on the weekend to the Vegas Golden Knights and the Dallas Stars, and the Jets have lost 3 in a row, 18-7 on the season, but 3-6 in their last 9, coming into a rejuvenated Blues squad with their new head coach, Jim Montgomery, tomorrow. We're going to be all over it. So many different aspects of this recent run to get to. Obviously, the lineup was quite a hot topic in Jet circles over the course of the weekend. The blue line, will touch on that. What is up? And where's the scoring gone from the top 6? How does this team survive without Nikolai Ehlers if he's out for any extended period of time? We're going to get to all of that. Jamie Thomas is going to join us for a few minutes at 1:30. And then we're going to do something different than we... Sometimes we'll do this in a smaller scale, but Connor's going to jump on with us just before 2. And we're going to sort of do a bit of a 3-man roundtable with myself, Remis, and Connor on the top Jets topics heading into this week, coming out of this road trip. And then we'll get to our NFL roundtable in the kind of the final half hour of the season, because there is tons to get to out of Week 13. Heading into the Monday Nighter and the upcoming week in the National Football League. So a lot of Jets and NHL talk. We'll get to the NFL a little bit later on. Should be a fun couple hours, and I'm very much looking forward to our fan feedback segment for fansfirst.ca, because I know many of you have a lot to say. Just before we bring in Michael Remis, a huge thanks to the sponsors that make the show happen each and every day. Of course, our friends at Princess Auto, Coolbet Canada, Rollies Transfer, Manitoba Battery, Fans First, Canadian Club, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, the Winnipeg Jets. Check out those Cyber Monday deals by the Jets today right now. By the way, check out their socials and the website for more details on that. Little Brown Jug, Royal Sports, and Boston Pizza. And we'll get to the Coolbet lines later on today. 3 games tonight in the National Hockey League. And, of course, the Denver Broncos looking to continue their bounce-back season with the Browns coming to Mile High tonight in the Monday Nighter. Welcome to everybody in chat. Great to see you all. Shout out to everybody listening on the podcast today. And let's get Remis in here to get things going. Remo, what's up? How was the weekend?
Yeah, doing all right. Just some Jets hockey Friday, NFL and Jets yesterday. And it wasn't really a holiday weekend here, but hey, enjoyed it. Weather's getting cooler, not too cool, but having a good time, and shuttled around kids to activities. Always see people who say they love the show, so that's always nice, Hustler.
You know what I did this weekend, just before we kind of dive into the games of the weekend? This is going to shock you. For the first time in probably well over 15 years, I went to Costco.
You did? You got a membership?
No, I went with a friend of mine that said, hey, I'm going, you should check it out. I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, whatever, I'll go. And I was going to do it on Friday after the Chiefs game.
It's Black Friday.
Before the hockey game at 7:30. I was so rattled, though, after the Chiefs game. I just needed some time before going out and facing the music to everyone that were relentless on me, and deservedly so. We'll touch on that in the game a little later on. But I had heard about what Costco is like on a Saturday. I don't think it was under. I was not prepared for how insane that place is. I mean, just finding a parking spot, bananas. Mm-hmm. And then you get in there, and it's an intimidating store to begin with, just like right off the top. And I don't do I don't mind crowds at like football games and things like that, but the the chaos of a store like that on a Saturday heading into the holidays, I don't know. I think I might be an online shopper moving forward if I ever do need to do Costco again. What a scene that was. I survived, though.
I used to go pretty exclusively on the weekends just because that was the time that worked for us. And then a couple of months ago, we had an experience where the line went to the back of the store all the way around to the freezers, and no one knew if you were in line. Like, how could you possibly be in line like halfway around the store, or if they were shopping. And since then, we've actually done click and collect at Superstore a couple times. Super easy, just pull up the car and they bring it in. We debated going on Friday because we needed to go, but it was Black Friday, and we were like, we're good. I heard the mall were busy. People are getting out. I know Royal. All our sponsors had such great sales. Royal, Little Brown Jug had big ones. F Apparel, which we've mentioned. I got to go pick mine up from there this week. But, Costco, you've just been watching so much AJ and Big Justice videos. You wanted to get the chicken bake, but it's actually not in Canada.
Yeah, I was interested in the double chunk chocolate cookie, of course.
Did you get it?
The hot dog. I didn't actually. By the time we got through and I got some stuff, I needed to get out of there. Like, not even the amazing double chunk chocolate cookie could keep me around there anymore. And again, I bought the most ridiculous stuff, like bacon mac and cheese balls.
What?
What
is that?
Like, I don't know. It's like mac and cheese and bacon inside of a ball. I have had them. They're actually quite good.
Yeah.
I don't know, like hot dogs and pastry, like just a whole bunch of frozen things that will be good. I don't know. It was I guess it was a success. I'm loaded up on Diet Pepsi for a while at least. That's a good thing.
Eric wants to know how many booms for the bacon mac and cheese balls.
Four boom. No, I'm not going to do it all. I'm giving them 4. I'm giving them 4 booms. There actually is some stuff I was thinking about doing a review on. Some very interesting stuff from there. Maybe that's a new bit of content that can come out of here. In the next in 2025. Some more reviews. I have done a few reviews and they have been quite popular. I guess we just need to be a little bit more consistent with some of the things. But there's definitely
the Mystery Mountain Dew. That was the best one.
Yeah.
I love that one.
That was a good one. And of course, the poutine dog from the Blue Jays game was another one that was quite popular. So anyways, well, listen, we could sit here talking about junk that I bought at Costco, or we could just get right down to it because I figured the Jets conversation wouldn't be as fun as it's been for the last month or so after, a tough last few days, 3 losses in a row. I'll say this. I certainly thought the Jets were right in both of those games, and they were, tied in the third period. And maybe I kind of felt like maybe this is a little bit of a market correction. They'd won a lot of those close games earlier on in the season. A few of them are going to come up on the other side, and that's exactly what happened. But, I especially liked their fight yesterday and the way they came back in the second period. I thought the penalty kill was really good. Now, we'll get to a reason why the penalty kill was on the ice all the time. And I'm already looking at the chat, and I know where we're going with this. But we may as well start it off with the Vegas game, Remis. And I think the thing that really sort of surprised me as I sat down ready to get to the game was when I learned about the lineup. And I was surprised that Ville Heinola wasn't in, considering the way that he played in his first 2 games. And I was downright stunned that Colin Miller wasn't in the lineup because it kind of felt like he, as much as any of the other guys in the top 4, were sort of regulars that weren't there. But it was quite clear the team wanted to get Big Stan back in the lineup. And they did it with Dylan Coghlan. And listen, we won't spend too much time talking about Coghlan. I thought he actually acquitted himself quite well for a guy that hadn't played a damn game the entire season. He goes into a place, and I'm sure there was a little bit of it that, he's a former Vegas Golden Knight, and they wanted to give him a chance to play against his old team. I think Arneal, as a former player, connects with guys like that, and they probably circled that spot. This is when we want to get him in. And obviously, they played a lot of hockey. It's not the worst thing to give a guy like Miller, one game off and get him back into the lineup. He did, but I was very surprised that Ville Heinola wasn't in the lineup. And stop me if you've heard this before, but a Jets head coach saying we need to get Stan back in the lineup. I believe the quote from Artie, and we'll play this a little later on. He's not getting any better in the press box. But considering the fact that Heinola had just come back and finally come into the lineup, and I thought had acquitted himself quite well, that was not a move that I was sort of expecting to see on the weekend. And then, of course, Ville didn't get back into the lineup yesterday either. Stan stayed. Colin Miller was back in, and unfortunately for Logan, there weren't a lot of highlights, and there certainly was a lot of close-ups on him standing behind protective glass in the penalty box as Adam Lowry and the boys went off to kill multiple minors.
Yeah, and normally I would say, Huss, we don't want to spend so much time talking about the third D pair. I mean, these guys don't really play, not going to make a huge impact, but, this has been a debate, with the two former first-round picks, one seemingly getting a ton of opportunity to prove himself, and one maybe, had a couple setbacks. And, Ville Heinola had a great game on, against the Kings, and he thought he had earned another opportunity, but they said, hey, you know what? He's played a lot since he came back from injury. Let's give him a rest. And so Stan comes in off injury and, got kind of caught in a tough spot there, got a little posterized by Brett Howden on his first of 2 goals. And you thought, okay, Stan back from injury. Let's ease him in, give him one, and then put Ville back in. He earned an opportunity. He was pretty good in the 2 games. Stan maybe didn't have his best. They went with Stan again on Sunday, and he took 3 penalties and was sat in the third period. So probably went about as bad as it could go. And I don't know, it feels like we've been in this story before. Maybe history repeating itself, and we'll see. We'll see if if it's Stan and whoever. There's one time where they kept trying to play him ahead of Dylan Samberg a couple of years ago, and Samberg passed him. And I think you're really seeing this year with Samberg out how much he means to the Jets lineup. But we'll see what happens tomorrow. Who goes in on the third D pair? And again, we don't want to harp on the top line's not scoring, and we're sitting here talking about the third D pair. But when this is like the seemingly one lineup decision they've made all year, it doesn't seem to be working out for them.
Yeah, I mean, listen, right now it's quite clear that they feel, and whether this is the coaches, if it goes above the coaches to management, I'm not sure. I mean, I guess they feel like they've invested a lot in Logan Stanley, and they feel he gives them the best chance to win. Like, I would have a lot more time. And listen, granted, it's not like Stanley's played quite a bit this season before he got hurt this last point. I mean, they had a very good record with him in the lineup. Now, I mean, I think that he had a few strong games. He had a few kind of iffy games, and that's sort of what you get from Logan Stanley. But it just does seem like he is in the lineup to provide, a third pairing defenseman that can kill penalties, that can be physical, that can add toughness to the lineup. And that's all great in theory. It just doesn't always transpire that way. So, one of the things that we'll be working on, and we'll talk about this a little later on when Connor comes on with us for the roundtable, is about how things move forward, just in the short term. Because, listen, injuries can happen. But if you're a big Ville Heinola fan, it has to be concerning, though, that, he didn't get in either of these games this weekend with Dylan Samberg out of the lineup. I mean, what happens when Samberg's back and he's healthy? Is there a spot in the lineup for him? I mean, I think it's pretty clear that right now, based on having Fleury playing in the top 4, having Stanley once again take Ville's spot in the lineup, that, he's a 7th defenseman at best right now. And again, we've only seen him play 2 games. Like, I'm not sitting here willing to anoint him like many are that, he should straight up be in the top 4. But I like this game in the first 2 games, and I think there's a lot more to see and a lot more to give. And it would have been a great test to let him run against some of these top teams as opposed to having him up in the press box. And We'll see when he gets in. Obviously, we're not going to hear much. Jets an off day today after coming back from Dallas yesterday. We will have tomorrow on the program comments from Scott Arniel in the morning after the morning skate. But listen, Jamie's going to come on right away. Let's hear a little bit from Scott Arniel. And actually, let's get to yesterday's game because, this was another game where, certainly they started off on the wrong end of most of the play in the first period, although a beautiful tip in by Adam Lowry, who continues to be the guy pulling this team forward, gets off of it. And then, you had the game tied up. And listen, the goal that ended up winning the game, and we'll play this from Arniel, he didn't seem too pleased with it. Of course, it was Josh Morrissey that was back on Mason-Marchment. And it sounded like they were very aware and they'd gone over that move that Dallas does quite often in video, but weren't able to contain it. And listen, it was a hell of a play, hell of a goal. But, when your top line and your second line is challenged the way that it is, you're without Nikolai Ehlers. You got to make those plays when you have a guy's back in, and that ended up being the difference. But here's what Arniel had to say about yesterday's loss to the Dallas Stars.
It's when the schedule like it is, it's a mental mistake, and we let a guy get in behind us, kind of like the other night in Vegas. We got beat on a rush situation, and it's tough. I mean, we're in a grind right here of the heavy part of the kind of the schedule. What's happened, it doesn't get any easier, and we're happy with the compete and the battle, and certainly a 1-1 game, going up to 7 minutes left in that into the third, and it just we have to find ways to make the difference there, and we just didn't.
All right. Listen, a very close game, and those are the games that can go either way. You'd like to at least get it to overtime, where the Jets, I believe, are undefeated. I mean, if you get one, you're getting two. But those regulation losses head-to-head in the divisions are the ones that hurt. Obviously, the Jets got one on Dallas a couple weeks back here in Winnipeg. Dallas got them back yesterday. Here's the play that I was talking about, the Mason-Marchment goal. On that play with Josh Morrissey. Here's how Arniel saw it and what he had to say about the winner.
We talked about it in Winnipeg against Dallas. It's what they like to do. We saw numerous clips before the game, what they like to do. We saw them try to do it every period against us. We talked about, it's a play, that's a strategy that they did. And at the end of the day, it's just, again, there's some mental things that happen for us that, I'd probably throw a lot at sort of the fatigue that came into it.
All right. Yeah, I guess that's probably a word that, you have to accept. There is some fatigue with the team, but it's the mental mistakes that, sometimes pop up, that certainly did on the weekend, that ended up being the Winnipeg Jets' downfall. Now, we'll talk more about Logan Stanley, who was back in the lineup. We touched on it right off the bat. He was in the penalty box frequently yesterday afternoon. Here's what Arniel had to say about Logan Stanley and his performance against the Stars.
Yeah, he certainly has to stay out of the box. I think that he's not going to get any better sitting in the press box. He needs to be in our top six. He's a big body guy. He's got size. He's got experience in this league. We expect him to, he expects more from himself, but at the same time, he's no good sitting in the press box and trying to get better. So he's got to be in these things, these type of games, and, hopefully continue to grow. We'll look at his shifts and we'll go through that stuff. And, like everybody else, we all need to be a little bit better when we get against St. Louis on Tuesday.
All right, so there's Scott Arniel on Stanley. And obviously, Remis, the reaction to this one is, well, there's more than one guy that, can't get better sitting in the press box. And there's one guy that hasn't been basically with the team in the last couple of years, and that is Ville Heinola. Both first-round picks, very different players. To me, it's clear that they are still hoping that they can get the best out of Logan Stanley to bring that, everything that Arniel just said, the big body, the toughness, and all of that. It's just got to show itself more on the ice. And that really wasn't the case on the weekend against two pretty tough teams. It wasn't like Stanley was going out there and being a difference maker. Listen, it was a tough weekend for him. I think back to the Howden goal. against Vegas.
Yeah.
Where, now listen, it was a bad giveaway by Morgan Barron, and he basically gave it to Howden, who was already skating forward. And, I mean, Logan Stanley was in the wrong place at the wrong time and just got absolutely blown by. But, man, like 15 minutes later, the NHL main account has the video on it, has the video up on their site. It was sort of like hockey's version of getting posterized in basketball. I mean, I don't even know if they were in the tunnel yet for the intermission. It was already all over the NHL socials. But then again, getting the opportunity to come back in and, being, putting a lot on that penalty kill unit, which, to their credit, I thought was awesome yesterday. And they absolutely had to be. I mean, killing a good chunk of 5-on-3 play when Stanley took a penalty during a PK. And then, of course, a couple other times to the box as well.
Yeah, a couple of highlights, from the weekend was the penalty kill hustler going perfect on yesterday against Dallas, 5 for 5, and also holding Vegas off the board on the penalty kill, 2 for 2. Unfortunately, and one other bright spot, Cole Perfetti, breaking his 11-game goalless streak, scoring 2 against Vegas on Friday.
He needed that so bad.
Big bright spot, and he was actually rewarded with one of the 3 stars of the week in today's Jets Weekly that Connor posted. But, you talked about the special teams on the penalty kill, the power play. They needed more from the power play. Could have used 1 on Friday, had opportunities, 0 for 3. And against Dallas as well, Huss, 0 for 2. And when the power play was so lights out early, we can talk about, how your third pair defenseman is. The bottom line is they were in 2 very tight games where the score is tied late in the third, and you need your top guys to step up. And we just haven't seen it from, Scheifele and Connor, and your second line really hurting without Nikolai Ehlers. So we'll see what happens if he's even going to be available tomorrow. But, a couple, takeaways from the weekend where you're now on a 3-game losing streak, but still has, thanks to this great start, the best start in NHL history, you're tied up there with Minnesota for first in the Central, 36 points each. So they're still in a really good spot, but hey, at least, you lost 2 tight games. One, I guess it wasn't really a one, was what they scored the empty netter yesterday.
Of course, that was an empty netter.
So I guess technically not, but I mean, it could have gone either way.
Basically 1-goal game.
It was better than the effort that we saw against the Kings, because that was, I don't want to call it a no-show, but that wasn't Jets hockey. I'll say that.
Yeah, no, they didn't have anything going on. But to your point, and listen, I guess we are probably burying the lead. If you're top 6, especially in a team that's built like this, if the top 6 isn't scoring, you can only expect so much from the Lowry and the Kapari line and Connor Hellebuck to get you over the hump. And it wasn't enough against 2 of the top teams in the league, in the Vegas Golden Knights and the Dallas Stars. Here's Arning on the PK versus Dallas, because that was one of the bright spots of the weekend.
Certainly, that second period there, we were shorthanded. Obviously, the 5-on-3, the different things that ended up happening, did a great job of kind of taking away some of their looks. And we knew they were going to get some chances off it, but Helly made some big stops. But I think it's interesting that we go 5 for 5, but our power play now needs to get a spark again. So it's just kind of part of what happens with this season. And like I said, we got to get home. We got to get home and kind of get in our own beds, kind of hope to refresh, get our minds back to where they need to be for Tuesday night against another divisional opponent.
All right. Now, one of the things that the power play certainly was missing was Nikolai Ehlers, and his absence leaves a great hole. Now, on a positive note, well, here, Remis, play 10 first. This was the initial update from Arnie on Saturday on Ehlers, and leaving him as a possibility for the Sunday game. Of course, he didn't end up playing it, but here's what Arnie had to say first about Ehlers.
Just again, we'll go day to day here. Just not we'll see how he is tomorrow. See if he's any better tomorrow. Get some treatment, get some rest today, and then look at it tomorrow. See where we're at. Obviously can't really do a whole heck of a lot till we get home.
So would you rule him out though for tomorrow's game?
We'll wait. Let's see how today goes. He's getting full treatment today, and See if there's more soreness or if it's better. And, he's the type of guy who wants to play. I'm not going to rule him out of anything yet, but it doesn't help that it's a 3:30 game, but we'll just kind of get through today and look at it tomorrow morning.
Bit of a relief in the sense that when you see a guy go down and obviously not return to the game, maybe.
Well, let's wait and see if he's in tomorrow then,
Right.
So, but yeah, no, unfortunate. Obviously, you know what he means to us. You saw what he did on the Perfetti's first goal, and he has a skill set that the opposition coaches kind of circle with his speed and his ability to create. So, it's a hole when he's not there.
All right, so that was Saturday. After the loss to Dallas, the night that Ehlers was hurt. Here's just another quick one from a post game yesterday. Mike sort of followed up with our Neil on the latest on Nikolai Ehlers as the team headed home.
Just one on Nikolai. Obviously, could have used him on the power play tonight, I'm sure, with just his speed and zone. And did anything change, or it just wasn't quite there today?
No, he's still sore, but he has to get home and see our doctors. He'll get home to get our doctors look at him. We'll still go day to day until we find out more.
So that'll be a wait and see. We'll have an update tomorrow on Ehlers. And, I think back to when it happened, Reem. I went and watched that play. I guess he went and made a hit. It was a little bit awkward when he collided with the Vegas Golden Knight player. And then if you recall, he went out shortly afterwards for a power play. It seemed like he lifted his stick to make a shot, then realized something was off, and then just went straight back to the bench. And that was the last we saw at 27 for the weekend.
Yeah, I'm watching the play here. He goes in to make a hit on a Vegas player near the boards, and I don't know if their skates got tangled up and he fell awkwardly. It doesn't look like anything, that serious. Like we saw some crazy injuries like from NFL over the weekend. But this, I don't know, maybe he tweaked something. And the good news is that, he didn't have to go home right away, Huss, and they said he's got to get it checked out by the doctors and, considered him day to day. And, what Austin Matthews has been day to day, I think, for at least a month. So sometimes you don't believe what these guys say, but you're hopeful that, he can come back because they did need him on the power play. And a huge, they hadn't really had any injuries all year. Like at Colorado, they had like their whole top six out except for McKinnon and Rantanen. But the Jets, been pretty healthy, but now you do have some adversity with Dylan Samberg, who's been a huge part of the, second pair defense with Pionk, and now Nikolai Ehlers, who was on his way for a career year. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. I think it's encouraging that he, didn't have to go home, but again, we'll know tomorrow. More tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't want to pencil him into the lineup anytime soon before we at least hear what they have to say when they come back. A player like Ehlers, especially at this point in the season, I'm sure they'll be more than cautious with him. And Ehlers more than anyone. And this isn't a knock on him, but the amount of times I can remember Ehlers going down in a game and thinking, "Oh my God, this looks bad. This is serious." And then to see him out there later on in that game makes me think that, maybe just maybe we actually will see him. But listen, he just missed a game. He's back here, I'm sure, today getting treatment and getting looked at by the Jet doctors, and we will just keep our fingers crossed that Nikolai Ehlers is going to be good to go for tomorrow when the St. Louis Blues come. We're going to get to this week, but it is. I think this is a really important week for the Winnipeg Jets. Like if they can get back to where they were and win, you've got St. Louis, you've got Buffalo, you've got Chicago, you've got Columbus. None of these teams right now, at least in the season, are world beaters. And if the team can, start a winning streak going tomorrow, this will be just a blip on the season. But again, you don't want to turn 3-game losing streaks into 5 or 6, especially considering the team's coming up. And that's why I think this game tomorrow night is a real big one for the Winnipeg Jets to get back at home, try and right the ship, and then, get on a bit of a run when they head back out on the road for a couple more games before coming back for some big teams. Next week you got the Bruins in. I know they've struggled this year, but that's still a very good team. The Vegas Golden Knights are back, and then an opportunity to play with Montreal. And then, of course, you got Minnesota the following Saturday. So some big games coming up. The team's still in a very good spot overall in the standings, but coming off the toughest week of the year. We'll get to all of these topics. Connor's going to join us a little later on. and we are expecting Jamie Thomas to jump in and join us in just a few minutes. Listen, before we do that, huge thanks to our friends at Rolly's Transfer. Family owned and operated for over 60 years right here in Winnipeg as the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba. Folks, if 2025 is going to bring a new spot for you and your loved ones to be calling home, make sure to take as much of the stress out of the moving process as possible by teaming up with our friends at Rolly's Transfer. They've been doing it, as I mentioned, family-owned for over 60 years, an extensive logistics business that takes them throughout the city and the province on a daily basis, which means flexible routes, flexible timing, and great prices for your next move. What you're going to want to do is head on over to their great website, totally relaunched at rollys.com. Top right corner, click on Request an Estimate. First thing, put in WST in the promo code for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies for Winnipeg Sports Talk listeners. Then let them know when you're moving, where you're moving, and let them know what needs to be moved. They'll turn it around with a great quote for you, get you locked in for the white glove treatment from Rolly's on your next move. If you're moving, talk to our friends at Rolly's. Find out more, request an estimate today over at rollys.com. It finally got cold, everybody. It started to feel a lot more like winter over the course of the weekend. And for all of you out there, this Christmas, give a gift that matters with the help of Manitoba Battery. Don't let your loved ones be stranded in the cold with a vehicle that won't start, and make sure they're equipped to handle what's ever thrown at them this winter with the NOCO 1000 amp booster pack for only $139.50, or get them a set of 25-foot booster cables for just $65. And of course, you can treat yourself to a great deal and grab that ice fishing flasher battery you need, or that sled battery that needs to be replaced, all for the best prices in the city. Whether it's to you or your loved ones, let Manitoba Battery help you give a gift that matters this Christmas. Find out more at manitobabattery.com, now with 2 locations to serve you, Logan Avenue and their new spot over on Dovercourt Drive. And guess today is the final day of the Black Friday sale at F Apparel, taking it through to Monday. Gang, it's the best prices of the year on the best looking gifts around. And that, of course, is the gift of incredible custom-made clothing from the #1 menswear spot in town. Suits starting at just $349, ties at $19, custom shirts at $49, all through today. So you still have some time. You can find out more or shop online at EPHapparel.com, or get down to F before close today to get in on those Black Friday deals. And of course, heading into holidays, F Apparel gift cards, one of the most popular gift cards for Winnipeg men to get under the tree this year. All right, what's the word with Jamie?
I texted him and sent him the link. You want me to phone him right now quickly? You want to play one of these clips?
Give him a quick text and let him know that we're good to go. Why don't we hear from Adam Lowry while we do that, though? I mean, Lowry, what can you say about Lowry? I mean, if there's one guy that is dependable, that's there each and every night for the Winnipeg Jets, the guy with the C on his chest, that had a real strong game yesterday, leading the way both offensively and on the PK last night. They just weren't able to get a little bit more and at least get that one to overtime after that third period goal on Connor Hellebuck. Here's what Lowry had to say about the game yesterday in Dallas.
You know, the battle level, the effort level was there. For the most part, our structure was pretty good. I think, both teams played a pretty sound defensive game. I really liked the kill tonight, and it's just a couple mistakes, here and there, and them capitalize on a couple chances and us not, and that's the difference. So, disappointed with the results, but I think you look at the game as a whole. There's some positives we can take out of it, and another quick turnaround. So just try and get as much rest as we can heading back to Winnipeg, and it'll be nice to play in front of the home fans.
I don't know if you got a chance to see any replays of your goal, but it looked like it was about a puck-sized opening is all you had to work with there, and you managed to thread the needle.
Yeah, I think, anytime you kind of got that moving screen and the deflection, it's just about changing the angle, and, I'll be honest, when I turned around and saw it in, I was a little surprised too. So, great job by Flair to get it through. They did a real good job of getting out in lanes and making it tough on them tonight. So, for him to get that by the first layer, and it was nice to see it going.
So there's the captain, Adam Lowry. Here's one more from Lowry, just on the game winner for the Dallas Stars, and a little bit more on the success of the PK, which came up so big, especially in the second.
You know what? They did a good job in the third of, stretching that one guy, leaving the zone, pulling back a defenseman, and then generating some underneath speed. I think, it's what makes that line successful. Marchment does it really well, Duchesne, Seguin. And then, they're able to hit that second layer of attack. But, that's a great one-on-one effort. There's not much JMO can do. He gets back, and, Marchment's got so much length, and you got the back to it. And, it's just an incredible play.
And you mentioned the PK, but obviously the 5-on-3, pretty pivotal moment of the game. And nice to see that obviously come around here, maybe after a few games where it had given up a few.
Yeah, obviously you don't want to be killing too many 5-on-3s, but nice to survive it. And, at Helly, he's got to be your best penalty killer. He made some stellar saves. He really did a good job of swallowing up a lot of pucks, too. I think, there weren't a lot of second opportunities. He's so good at either getting them to the corners or kind of, getting him in a place that he can cover them up. But to kill the 5-on-3 and then, kill a couple more that period and, not really give them any life. It wasn't, like that they generated a ton of chances off it. I think that's kind of how you want it to look, and the structure. And, like we said, it's going to be a work in progress throughout the year. And, I think tonight was a step in the right direction for that.
Lowry spoke about the PK, and I'll agree. I mean, I thought the PK was, listen, it kept them in the game in the second period. What was sort of strange, though, Remis, was with all of the time that they spent in the box, they actually fared a lot better on the shot clock in the second period than they did in the first, being outshot 12-7. I mean, it was 10-8. I think a couple of those came in late. Obviously, if you were on the PK or on the power play, I should say, for Dallas. And then the Jets, to their credit, continued to bring it. They outshot Dallas 12-9 in the third period. Unfortunately, though, the one that counted mattered the most for Mason Marchment, who had a real strong game. Both goalies were great yesterday. Ottinger with 26 saves on 27 shots, and Hrabchak with 28 on 30. And we do expect those individuals to be teammates next week when, next week in 2 days when we officially hear word on the Canadian and American national teams for the Four Nations Cup. One other guy we want to hear from is Neil Pionk. He spoke after yesterday's game, and disappointed Pionk just talked about the loss in Dallas yesterday afternoon.
It was a good effort. Gave up a couple chances, but played well enough to win. Didn't get the result we wanted. That's been the kind of the model the last couple games. So it's going in the right direction.
Looked like Dallas, especially in the third, was making a real concerted effort to kind of stretch the ice, and they end up getting the goal off that. Did you see it that way? And I guess as a defenseman, that's something you kind of have to be acutely aware of.
Yeah, even started a little bit in the second. Their winger would just disappear from the zone, stretch us out, and then also in the third they started rimming pucks a lot. So they do a blind rim, and you have to follow that guy out of the zone, stretch us out, and obviously they cashed in on it.
How would you describe just the energy level from given the grind of the schedule that you guys have had here?
I thought our effort was good tonight. Went through some adversity, battled all the way through, had some big block shots, had some good defensive plays, and like I said, there was a lot of good things tonight. So we'll look for a different result on Tuesday.
All right, one more quick one from Neil Pionk. The questions everyone asking: is there any panic on the team after losing 3 in a row for the first time this season?
No, not at all. We got a veteran group, so been through this before, and we'll have to find a way to battle back.
How much forward are you looking to sleeping in your own bed tonight?
Very much so. Do some laundry, go back on the road.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, a very short trip back to the Peg for one game, and then out on the road again to Buffalo and Chicago before finally getting back for a little more of an extended period of time next week at Canada Life Center. when the team begins a more extended homestand next Sunday against the Columbus Blue Jackets before welcoming in Boston, Vegas, and Montreal next week at Canada Life Center. All right, Connor's going to join us in a few minutes, and we're going to get to everything going on around the Winnipeg Jets, and then we'll bang out a little NFL roundtable as well. Lots of interesting stuff to get to from the weekend. But Remo, this is some Jets news. Well, there's a couple things to talk about first off. We've got a big trade in the WHL involving a top Winnipeg Jet prospect, Brayden Yager. We'll touch on that in a minute. But over the weekend, the list for the camp for Canada's World Junior team came out. And no surprise that Brayden Yager's on the squad. But I have to admit, I was a little bit surprised to see Colby Barlow's not on that list, especially after the conversation we had with Shane Malloy last week.
Yeah, Shane seemed like pretty confident that both players would be on, but I think there's some other not players that were not invited to Team Canada that kind of perked the ears up for those who follow junior hockey pretty closely, but for us, we'll be watching Brayden Yager. And yeah, Colby Barlow hasn't quite had, the best season so far. I know he did get traded and not on Team Canada, but there's some other players as well. Bennett, Seneke, remember he selected all the surprise at the early pick, Tidge Iginla as well, not on the list. So I think that was kind of, the theme that I saw. Reaction of the players invited to the camp wasn't like, oh, these are the players in. It's, oh, there's some other players, notable players that are not on this list.
Exactly. We should give a shout out to Wheaties goalie from Carberry, Carson Bjarnason, who is among the 4 goalies on the training camp list. But Brayden Yager certainly projects to be a big part of the team. But certainly has to be disappointing for Colby Barlow not to be in the mix for Team Canada at the World Junior Hockey Championship. Now, speaking of Yager, this had been rumored for a little while, but a blockbuster trade today in the Western Hockey League. The Lethbridge Hurricanes have acquired Jets prospect Brayden Yager and Jackson Younger from the Moose Jaw Warriors in exchange for 3 players and 6 draft picks. Check this out. You got Brayden Yager and the goalie Jackson Unger going to Lethbridge, coming back, Colt Carter, Brady Smith, Landon Ward, and then check out the draft pick compensation going there. A first rounder this year, a third rounder this year, a fourth rounder in 26, a fifth rounder in 26, and then is that 28, Remis?
28, first and second. Yeah, it's a couple years away.
So a whole whack of draft capital going to the Moose Jaw Warriors, who, of course, gave up a ton to get Matt Savoy last year. They won their championship, and now they trade their captain and a top goaltender to sort of reload moving forward. This is good news for Brayden Yager, though. He's going to get a chance to play on another team with the opportunity to compete for a WHL championship and head to the Memorial Cup. And after what he was able to do last year, leading being one of the leaders on the Moose Jaw Warriors to a championship, you could understand why he was in such high demand for a team like Lethbridge that's looking very, very good at this point in the season and building up and counting on big things from the 2 players they just acquired.
Yeah, and you see those trades in junior hockey. You saw the Ice when they were here load up for the playoffs. So nice to see him, getting a chance to play on a competitive team and play for a Memorial Cup. But first, Huss, it's, hope he's on the, named to the team. He was on last year, and for the World Juniors coming up. So we'll keep an eye, and if you're cheering for Canada, it's some extra reason to watch for Jets fans with Brayden Yager having a nice season and always bringing up the comparisons to the player he was traded for, Hustler, who's currently in the AHL not having a ton of success. I had to bring that up, right?
Yeah. Hey, it's always part of the conversation. It's always part of the conversation.
He's up to 6 points in 14 games. He's finding his footing in the new level there.
You know, just to your point, I mean, Julian in chat mentions, frankly, who is left off. I'm not surprised. You could probably name 5 snubs that might be at a better level than Barlow right now. And then, Mary Jane Yager got traded with a blockbuster trade. No kidding. We'll get to more of this and, a part of that conversation. I do see yours truly mentioning Barlow should be the prospect you move at the deadline. Cash in on his draft capital sooner rather than later. I think he scored his 10th goal. I saw Dave Minuk's always doing a great job following the Jet prospects over on Illegal Curve. I think he got his 10th goal on the weekend, which brings him up to 16 goals in 24 points. Of course, he got the trade that he was rumored to want. He's on a more competitive team right now. He should get an opportunity to play in the playoffs, but not enough, at least early in the season, to get that nod from Team Canada brass to be a part of the club. All right, we're going to bring in Connor and start firing up this roundtable. We got a lot of Jets topics to get to, and then we're going to talk about the and then we're going to get to some NFL as well before the end of the program. Big shout out to our friends at Princess Auto, who just finished up the Mega Smasher sale. But don't you worry, folks. There's going to be great deals on so many unique tools and equipment at Princess Auto heading into the holidays. You can take care of a lot of the projects on that list, or maybe start a few new ones with a trip to Princess Auto. And while you can shop online at princessauto.com, you can pop into their stores on Panet Road, on Portage Avenue West in Brandon. That Princess Auto fan in the family might just love a gift card so they can go in on Boxing Day or after the holidays and get ready for 2025 with the best that Princess Auto has to offer. Of course, Princess Auto, coast to coast, but founded here in Winnipeg, headquartered here in Winnipeg. You can check them out at princessauto.com or one of the 3 locations. And by the way, congratulations to them. What an opening weekend for Bell's Kitchen and Music Hall. So popular on the weekend, they had to close yesterday at 3. And that's what great barbecue joints do. You got to get it before it's gone, and it was gone yesterday. So check that place out as well. 1212 Nairn just opened officially last Thursday. Incredible barbecue, great room. Definitely going to want to make a point of getting over there at some point over the holidays. Now, our friends at Canadian Club are very excited about the second edition of the Invitation Series. Of course, the Canadian Club 18-year-old high proof, which is available now at your local Manitoba Liquor Mart stores. This is the second edition of the Invitation Series, and this one has been so well received, winning a gold medal at the International Wine and Spirits Competition a little earlier on this year. Now, I mention this to you right now because it's a one-shot deal. What you see is what you get. There's no more getting made. So for entertaining over the holidays, for maybe a special bottle in your own cabinet, as well as an amazing gift, pop down to your local Manitoba Liquor Marts ASAP, because you don't want to go there too late and see that it is all gone. Only $79.95 while supplies last. Get on over there, and we will look forward to seeing that Canadian Club 18-year-old high proof limited edition on some tables and in glasses over the course of these holidays. Also do want to give a big shout out to our friends at Wallace & Wallace, the fencing and overhead door specialists in town since 1946. If you need the security and protection of a new fence, they have you covered. Vinyl, ornamental, chain link, welded wire, wood fences, you know it, they've got it for you. And of course, if you need a new garage door, make sure to check out our friends at Wallace & Wallace, because they do have the largest selection of overhead garage doors in town. one that'll perfectly fit your home and add value to it as well. Give Wallace & Wallace a call, 204-452-2700. A Wallace & Wallace team member will come down and give you a free estimate. And, of course, you can also see them in person if you want to pop by their showroom, Lowson Crescent, just off of Kenaston. All right, we're going to bring in Connor in just a second, but looks like we found Jamie Thomas, who is doing up his shoes for some reason before he comes on this interview. A very strange opening. Maybe he's just stretching. I don't know. Let's bring JT in for a couple minutes, and then we'll get to the roundtable. Jamie, what's going on? How are you?
I'm just basking in the glow of beating you in fantasy football, and just got back from the parade. So sorry about being late. I apologize.
That's okay. Well, hey, The parade is the parade. I have my fantasy life is going right along the lines of my picks this year, or at least recently. It hasn't been a good one, but considering on how a disaster you were last year selling the farm for picks and everything, it's nice that it's actually turned into a productive season and not like the Carolina Panthers last year and then having to do it all over again. Where are you at right now with this last week? I mean, when you raise the bar so high for the team, you knew over 82 games this was going to happen, but how do you look back at these last 3 games, the first 3-game losing streak of the Winnipeg Jets season, with, I would say, at least 2 much better performances on the weekend after a real ugly one in LA?
Yeah.
That being said, nothing to show for their last 3 games.
Yeah, I think I mean, obviously we knew what they were doing early in the year wasn't sustainable. You can't keep that pace up forever. And in some ways, maybe you don't want to, because I keep thinking of the Red Wings. I think of the Bruins tears through the regular season. Not a whole lot of adversity for either team, and then didn't end up winning a Stanley Cup. So I think everyone kind of figured that you're going to have your swoons a little bit. But the game in LA, I think, was an outlier. But I also want to give credit to the Kings in that aspect. But it's been a pretty heavy road trip. It was a heavy road trip. It was full of challenging teams. And I really liked the way they played in Vegas, a place they don't usually play very well at all. And I particularly didn't mind their game in Dallas. So you didn't get rewarded in either place. I felt that you deserved at least a point in both those games. So I just don't think there's any cause for concern. You got to see Dylan Coughlin. We got to see Ville Heinola on this road trip. Logan Stanley got back into the lineup. So you're starting to see the depth within the organization at the defense position. You got great goaltending again. A few too many rush chances that Scott Arniel pointed out against the game against Vegas. So I don't think there's anything where you're looking if you played terrible after the LA game in Vegas, then I think you'd have some cause for concern. But I don't think we should be looking at the schedule and going, okay, this was a pretty easy little stretch they've been going through, and now you get to come back home, albeit for one game, and we'll see where they sit. But the times they've come back from road trips, they've been great at home, starting to come back a little bit more to earth on the road, which is natural. So again, if they would have had a couple of stinkers after the LA game, then I'd be a little bit worried, but I'm not.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, I know all the talk in chat and social media circles is on the lineup decisions and the third pairing, but I mean, it is sort of burying the lead in the fact that a very quiet week for the top line, and then great news to see Cole Perfetti get off the schneid with a couple in Vegas. But with that good news, we got bad news that Nikolai Ehlers is out, and again, we don't have any information. We won't until tomorrow on Nikolai Ehlers' spot, but I mean, moving forward, you can only rely on Hellebuck in the third and fourth line so much. I mean, at a certain point, if your top guys get on a bit of a drought, it makes it a lot harder to win games, especially these tough ones when you're only scoring 1 or 2 goals. Yeah,
and another thing that wasn't going to be sustainable was the 44% power play, and even 35% power play as well. So that wasn't going to be sustainable. That was going to come back a little bit closer to earth as well. It is true, Huss. If you're big players, and I go back to the Florida game at home, and that's where Scott Arniel said our best players were our best players, and that's what you had to have them. I mean, when you don't have last change on the road, opportunities are not going to present themselves as much as they do at home. But it just goes to show you that when the top guys aren't going, how challenging it is to win in the National Hockey League. And I think any team will say that too. If Connor McDavid's not at his best, or Leon Draisaitl aren't scoring, we all saw what happened last year for the Edmonton Oilers. it's challenging. And what I will say is, like, I really liked what I saw from the bottom 6 forward group on the road trip. That's a good sign. Now we just have to figure out where this is. And I liked Alex Iafallo on the second line when he filled in for Nikolai Ehlers. Injuries are going to happen. You're not going to go through a year unscathed. I'm sorry, that's just not possible. So now it's just, we've been talking over and over again how deep this team is. Now you're just going to see if those conversations, those comments are true. I believe they are. I don't think you can go 2 months without Nikolai Ehlers and want to be successful. But at the same time, it's just nice to know that you can move people around and have success. So we'll see how long this injury is, if it's at all, and then see how the Jets move. But I just think we talk so much about the depth, and the reason why they were so successful early on is because if the top line wasn't going, somebody else was going to generate offense. That works at home. It's just unfortunate sometimes a little more pressure goes on the top 6 forward group on the road when neither the first or second line are putting in games outside of the what Cole Perfetti did in the game in Vegas.
Well, let's talk about Cole for a minute. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, listen, if we're looking for some positives from the weekend, that certainly was it. He had been ice cold, but he is a player, Jamie, that when he starts feeling it or when something good happens, and, I think it was Mike that was on the road trip that was talking to him off air, you could see that it was, it was getting to him a little bit, the fact that he had, been in a bit of an offensive slump, and to get not one but two, you hope, especially in the absence of Nikolai Ehlers for however long that it is, that can add a little bit more punch to it. Although Ehlers, of course, is a huge part of one of those goals, and I don't think there's any doubt that, as great as Iafallo has been in his role this year, it's a massive hole if 27 is out, not only on that second line, but the power play looks completely different too.
Yeah, well, that he was probably the elixir that the top power play unit needed, and I think that's why you saw so much success. Even they had such a balance from the first and second power play units, and yes, I will say the depth and the comment I made about I didn't mind Alex Iafallo on the second line. We just don't. You can't go extended periods of time and not expect to struggle. Nikolai Ehlers. That's why any conversation about trading him, I don't, if it comes down to it, you better be getting a lot back because he's just such a unique talent that it's hard to replace. And we're going back even, if Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuck didn't sign their respective extensions, very challenging players to replace in your lineup. And Nikolai Ehlers falls right into that area, that game-breaking speed and the playmaking ability that he has and the ability to score at any time. Very hard to replace that type of player, whatever you get in the return and back. And so speculation isn't going to help us right now. We don't mind, Alex Iafallo can play in the top 6 for a little bit, but it's not something you're going to survive off of if this is long-term or, you'll make do because you won't have a choice, but it's way better when 27's in your lineup.
Well, and listen, I don't really even entertain any possibility of Ehlers being dealt this year.
Yeah.
Listen, I understand there's a very good chance that if he doesn't want to resign at the end of the season that, he may be elsewhere. And, you'll look back and you'll say this is a player you drafted in the first round and you got a ton of great seasons with them on that 6-year extension. And, then you have to fill a hole. But with the start that the team's had, he's just way too important to this team if they want to do something, if they want to move forward further than they've done the last few years, just making the playoffs and bowing out quickly. Ehlers is going to be a huge part of that, and it is very hard to imagine any quote-unquote hockey trade for a player like that with an expiring contract at the end of the year that doesn't impact your ability to win this season. But never mind trades. The big question is getting by without him in the lineup right now. And as we talked about, both to the top 6 and the power play, he's such a big, big part of it moving forward. The other guy the team's missing right now is Dylan Samberg. And listen, I think Hayden Fleury was fine.
Yeah, he was.
He was fine. But it's they don't have another guy to go in and do that. And I think part of maybe why Stanley's in the lineup right now is you do miss that size and power of Dylan Samberg. And I think they're sort of feeling like, even though they're not playing in the same spot and playing in, and one's on the second pairing, one's on the third pairing, that at least the thought process is that with what they're losing from Dylan Samberg, they want to have him in there. But certainly it was interesting decisions with the blue line on the weekend for sure. Coghlan getting his first game of the year after not playing the entire season, and Miller's sitting out, and then Miller coming back in, but Stan staying in, and Villy back in the press box on popcorn duty after playing well in his first 2 games, I thought.
Yeah, I'll go with this. I don't think you can play a heavy game like you do in Vegas and Dallas without some size in your lineup. And, clearly if Dylan Sandberg's in there, maybe you do leave Billy Hanel in the lineup. I think Scott Arniel's, how much he loves Billy, wanted to get him in there. I didn't think that Minnesota would have been the perfect place for Billy to come back into the lineup because of how heavy a game it was. And they hit him, and he played limited minutes. I just don't think that's a place where until Billy's up to full speed, you're not going to really benefit from having him against a team like Vegas or Dallas or Minnesota long term. When he's back and moving and he's skating and he's thinking, he's not thinking, he's moving the puck without thinking, then I think you're safe to put him in those heavy games. So I still think that Logan Stanley plays a role, and I thought he was playing well up until his injury. He just needs continuity. He just needs consistency. He needs to be the lineup. It's hard to just come into
I would counter, though. I would counter and says so does Hanel. I mean, so does anyone. And at a certain point, who are your best defensemen? Who are the guys that are going out there that give you the best chance to win? And listen, that's there's nothing else to it. That's what the coaches are making their decisions. They think that in this particular situation, this guy gives us the best case chance to win.
Yes.
People will have differing opinions on all of that. I mean, no one's going to be in total agreement on it. And listen, they won a lot of games with Stan in the lineup earlier on this year.
Sure did.
I guess the question is to where, and listen, is Ville Hanel an NHL defenseman? Can you roll him out there? Is he going to be able to play every night? Or is this guy just a luxury piece that pops in every now and then if you're playing? Because let's face it, I mean, if this guy's going to be a regular in the National Hockey League, you got to be able to play against Vegas. You got to be able to play against Dallas.
Yeah.
Can't just get rolled out when San Jose and Anaheim come to town.
Yeah, I see your point. I just don't like the matchup unless it's Logan Stanley is your better. I understand what you're saying. I just think size and physicality is important. Length is important against a team like Vegas and Dallas. If Ville Hanel is playing 20 games, he's fully healthy, sure, put him out there. I still think, Ville is an everyday NHLer once we get to the point where he can stay healthy long enough to prove it. I mean, I have no question about his ability. I have no question about how he's grown over the years. It's just we got to see him stay healthy long enough for him to be in the lineup a long period of time. So I don't mind putting Dylan Coghlan. You have to see what you have with him too. And the unfortunate part of all of this, man, is like, could you imagine if Dylan Coghlan and Hayden Fleury were in the AHL right now? Because the Moose would sure love their services if Hanel and Stanley were healthy. So there's a whole lot of moving pieces here that are unfortunate, because losing Dylan Sandberg is a lot bigger loss than a lot of people think, because of what is his confidence, how well that second pairing was playing, and his penalty killing abilities of blocking shots, and his size, as you just mentioned. Those are hard things to replace in your lineup, regardless of the depth you have at the position.
Hey, just before we go, tomorrow, the Blues are coming into town, and this to me, I mean, this is a big game, and I think a really big week for the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, if they can, get back in the win column and get back out, get back to the winning ways against, Buffalo and Chicago and Columbus, this will just be a blip. But the one thing that you have to avoid after doing such a great job with that start is going on extended losing streaks and giving it all back right now. And this challenge tomorrow, I think, is going to be a real intriguing game, because the Blues didn't wait. They pulled the trigger on their coach. Jim Montgomery's come in. They've had some big wins since that. And this will be a desperate team in St. Louis, knowing that they have put themselves in a situation looking up at Winnipeg and Minnesota and Dallas and Colorado, that they have to win and have to get some head-to-head wins within the division. And Jets are going to need to be ready to go tomorrow night. And sometimes after playing as much and traveling as much as they are, that first game back from the end of the road trip sometimes takes a little while to get going, and I'm not sure the Jets have that, although you'd think that they'll be very determined and focused considering the way the last few ended.
Yeah, and not getting rewarded for your effort. I don't mind their effort. I don't mind what they did. But you're back on home ice, and I understand that it's the end of a long road trip, but it's just the Central Division is starting to become the jam fest that we thought it was going to be earlier in the year with the Jets. And while sitting on top of things, but Dallas is only 6 points back, so it's starting to tighten up the way that we all expected it to at the beginning part of the year. And Nashville, the outlier in that whole department, but St. Louis, it's always 2-1, 3-1 with these two teams. And the Central, you got to take care of your business in your own division, especially you're back on home ice. This is where you played well all year long, except for that one game against the Toronto Maple Leafs. So it's time to get back off the schneid and take care of these divisional games, because the schedule is a little bit lighter than it had been last week or throughout the 6-game road trip outside of the games in Pittsburgh.
Hockey Fights Cancer game tomorrow as well. That's always a special one for the organization. I think for the fans as well.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, it's always heartbreaking to see the kids walk out to center ice. And, we have 4 of the 5 stories of the kids that are going to be out there for the opening ceremonies and for the face-off. I mean, it's tough, but I mean, it's great to see their resilience. I think a lot of the players enjoy it. It's a nice round of applause, but True North has always done a great job with this game, and the NHL itself has always done a great thing with Hockey Fights Cancer. So just another example of that coming tomorrow night with 5 special kids being part of the opening ceremonies tomorrow night.
First time in 2 weeks, we get the chance to see the team back at home.
Yeah.
Is always a special game, big divisional game as well. Hopefully we'll see you at the rink tomorrow, JT. Thanks for jumping on, and yes, congratulations on your win. I had very low expectations going into this week, and I even came below those.
Yeah. You know what? We always say that before we lose. I had low expectations. That's what we do. That's what losers say, Huss, but that's okay.
It's been a tough year for Big Red, I will say.
Well, you made the playoffs every year before this, so I think you can bow out for 1 year anyways.
That wasn't the plan, but that's
the
world I'm living in right now. You have a great one, pal. Take it easy.
Yeah, all the best, buddy.
Good stuff. Thanks to Jamie Thomas. Of course, you can check out Jamie, Sarah. They'll have a show right before ours tomorrow, 12:30, the check-in over on the Winnipeg Jets YouTube channel. All right, listen, Connor's going to join us in just a minute. Remo, before we kind of dive back into all of the Jets topics, a couple quick notes on the CFL. First things first, the big guy, the GOAT himself, Stanley Bryant, back with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers today. First Sergio Castillo, now Stanley Bryant back for another year. Certainly one of the top lines on Kyle Walter's extensive to-do list gets checked off today.
Yeah, big signing. CFL offseason underway. We had some coach hirings in Edmonton, rumored coach hirings, but Kyle Walters putting to work. A lot of free agents. We had Castillo before, but now Stanley Bryant being signed. Big part of the O-line, one of the greatest to ever do it. Back in blue and gold. 1 more year, and then I guess he's kind of on year to year at this point, but this kind of has, the thing like getting all the guys back together. The Grey Cup's here. I know you're putting your best foot forward every year, but there has to be something special about the Grey Cup being here and everyone coming back saying, hey, we know we've been to 5 straight, we lost 3 straight, but they still have a very, very good team, us, and there's no reason why they can't do it again. Hopefully the outcome would be different this year, Huss, so we'll have to see what happens. But big news, and we'll see what other dominoes are to fall as they did announce free agency. I think it officially opens in February, so they do have a lot of time to get their own guys signed. And Stanley Bryant won. I wonder what Willie Jefferson. We do know that this year's price won't be last year's price won't be this year's price as per his X account. But yes, February 11th is the free agency date. So he's got some time. Kyle Walters here. He's got a long list.
Got to shout out Willie J for quoting one of my favorite Raptors, Pusha T, in his...
Oh, that was a rap thing? I thought that he just pulled that out on his own. I thought he was inventing those bars.
Is not today's price. It is a good one. Other things. So Mark Kylam hired today and announced today as the head coach of the Edmonton Elks. He coming from 20 years down in Calgary. Is from the area, former player at the U of A. Sounds like he's got his idea of his staff kind of put together. And Buck Pierce a finalist for the BC Lions job. He's at the top of the list. Take that for what it's worth when it put out. But Maximic also a finalist for the head coach. And I guess the Bombers in a lot of ways are in sort of wait and see mode as to whether they're filling the OC position or if Buck is going to stay. Because Mike O'Shea was very clear that if Buck is not offered a head coaching job, he's very much part of this team moving forward.
Yeah, Justin Dunk of 3 Down Nation putting out the finalists. Buck Pearson, Jordan Maximic, the OC, and the Bombers, did get permission to interview him. So the Bombers are kind of in a wait and see mode with some of their executives. What was it? Danny McManus, finalist for the GM in Hamilton, and Richie Hall interviewed as well. So we're kind of following along what's going on there. Interesting name. The other name for the head coach finalist in BC, Mike Benavides, who's been a coach before, but he's been doing media there. So we'll wait and see what happens, but more dominoes falling. I forgot how much I love the CFL offseason because basically everyone's a free agent. So you do have something happening almost every day until February. And so we're keeping an eye on what's happening with the blue and gold. And yeah, CFL free agency. Again, until February to sign your own guys, but there's still some coach shuffling that needs to happen.
All right, listen, let's get Connor in here. Shout out to Ben Howard. I love Pusha T, probably my favorite rapper. Yeah, I figured the Pusha T reference would get people going. Fresh off another great episode of WST this week, and a very fun Sunday morning yesterday. In a lot of ways, tee up for yesterday's Jets-Dallas game, although we would have liked some better results to talk about on the program. Guess who's back? Connor Hrabchak. What's going on? C, how are you, buddy?
Doing great. Had a fun weekend, like you said. WST Sunday Live. We had Gavin Spittle from the Spits and Suds podcast on. I interviewed him prior to the game.
You guys are BFFs, by the way. Like you and Gavin, BFFs in the Central Division. It's wonderful seeing this relationship blossom in front of our eyes.
Every time the Jets play the Stars, I'm just like, oh, one of us is talking to one another on someone's podcast. It's going to be so much fun. But no, he was great. He provided so much great insight on the Stars, and it was a really fun episode. Thanks to everyone who joined us Sunday morning.
So listen, Remis and I have kicked this around right away, and kind of before we talk about specific topics in and around this last week, it wasn't a great one. I mean, obviously the win against Minnesota was awesome. Although it was the Hellebuck show for the first 35 minutes before the team sort of stepped up. The Kings game was ugly. And then, I mean, what did you think about the weekend? I mean, the bottom line is pro sports. It's about winning. They didn't win, but 2 tightly contested games that just didn't go their way during a time where they're just not getting a lot out of that top line, which has sort of been the catalyst of the big offensive start to the season.
Yeah, I think it's really tough to win when your top line goes as ice cold as they did, and the amount of minutes that they played, that's no secret. But even with that, the Jets were in these games. They played well enough to win, in my opinion. And I think maybe earlier in the season when they got off to the best start in NHL history, these are games that they would have won. They would have went to overtime against the Minnesota game early in the season, or the Chicago game where they scored with a minute left. There's a little bit of luck that goes into this as well, but I feel like the mistakes late in these games, especially that one where Vegas takes the lead with 5 minutes left because Brett Howden is wide open on the back door. Vladislav Nemeskov doesn't pick up his guy. Scott O'Neill mentioned their ability to defend off the rush. I think these are just little things, little details that are burning the Jets that maybe didn't get to them early on in the season. And 1-goal games can be a bit of a crapshoot at times. You hear about that in the NFL and stuff when teams win 1-score games. Usually, unless you're the Kansas City Chiefs, that stuff regresses. So I think the same thing happens in the NHL. When you'll win a lot of 1-score games, you'll lose a lot of 1-score games, and that'll kind of regress to the mean. And I think that's a lot of what you're seeing with the Jets right now is their power plays coming back down to earth a little bit. But again, their 5-on-5 game I thought was strong in both of the Friday and Sunday games.
Okay, so here's the question for you. And I may as well put this to the chat too, because we're going to need to do some fan feedback. And this is the question. It's the overlying question of it all for the Not Autocorp question of the day. Why not question of the day, I should say, for Not over at Waverly and McGillivray. Still 18-7, awesome start to the season. Tied at the top, although Minnesota now actually is first place in the Central because they played one less game. coming off of this week and the end of probably the most trying time of the entire schedule, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your level of concern? We're playing level of concern right now on WST. And for all of you in chat, 1 to 10, 10, 5-alarm fire, 0 or 1 would be, what are you even talking about? That's a stupid question, Huss. Connor, what about you?
I'm going to go with 4 pending Nikolai Ehlers injury news. I think if he's out anything longer than, a few weeks or like months, or like if it's worst case scenario, then that number's obviously going to skyrocket. But like I said, I really like this team's 5-on-5 game against Dallas. Looking at natural stat trick, they actually outchanced Dallas at 5-on-5, played the majority of that games on special teams. So I'm not fully panicking. They still have Connor Hellebuyck. I still believe in the power play, even though it's regressed a little bit. The Dylan Sandberg injury definitely hurts. But yeah, I'll go with 4. And then we'll wait and see what they say about Nikolai Ehlers tomorrow, because that number could be a lot higher.
Remis, what about you?
Yeah, I was going to say about the same, 3. They're going to lose. I think you like the way that they played. They lost 2 very tight 1-goal games on the weekend. I think it shows that with this Dylan Sandberg injury, they're going to need to acquire some help on the back end. You see the injuries, to Sandberg and Ehlers hurting them. But I'll agree that if Ehlers is out longer term, that level of concern goes higher. But I think they're doing okay. Yes, they're in a really good spot. They're in first. They lost 3. They've rebounded well since that dud game in LA. And sometimes you lose 1-goal games. What they scored with 5 minutes left against Vegas scored 5 minutes left. A very nice pass. I still don't know how it went through. From William Karlsson there on the winner. And I saw someone posting that winner that Marchment scored. He's beating a Norris caliber defenseman. I know Arneal said he didn't like how Marchment got behind him, but I thought Morrissey did a great job coming back, getting in front of him. It was just a gorgeous move with a beautiful backhand goal. And they almost tied it too at the end. So I think you like the fight, but it's pretty clear they needed this road trip to end. They needed to come home. Level of concern, I'm not sounding the alarm bells.
Yeah, no. Listen, I'm going to be with you. I'll go maybe a 3. I will say this: I would be more concerned if this week, and I guess the Kings game was a bit of a dud, but that was a good team with a great performance, and we talked about how they got straight up embarrassed by the San Jose Sharks on Monday of last week, and we're probably coming in with a renewed focus on what they need to do. And when the Kings play that stifling style, which they certainly did in the third period, I mean, you have to find a way to get through that, and the Jets just didn't have an answer. But the Dallas Stars, the Florida Panthers, both got waxed by the Chicago Blackhawks in the last couple of weeks. The Florida Panthers lost 4 games in a row. Starting off with that loss here in Winnipeg. So, I mean, this does happen. But listen, if this goes to 4 or 5 games, then I think those numbers are going to be ramped up a little bit. Listen, while we're getting everybody in the chat, let's get to fan feedback. Brought to you by fansfirst.ca, your best place for buying and selling resale tickets for Winnipeg. And, of course, the bottom line of Fans First is what you see is what you pay. No fees. Fansfirst.ca. DL14 is a 0. BA Split's a 2. Derek's a 3. Aristeel's a 6. SK's a 5. Ben Howard's a 6. So we're kind of in the middle of the way. Listen, I'd hate to see what these numbers would be if there was a couple more losses added onto this. Not that I want to be going down that road. Hopefully we'll get to the show on Wednesday and it'll be all good again heading back out on the road. Mahoney says 5. They still have fight in them. Frederick Hook's been freaking out in the chat all show today. 109. Freddie, you need to take a chill pill maybe more than anyone. I'm going to give out our daily chill pill of WST to Frederick. And Eric says 0. Relax, everyone. I mean, listen, I think there is some things that need to. And listen, Rain says 4 to 10. If Ehlers is out for a while, 7 out of 10. And listen, we have been here before. It is a long season. We'll probably look back at this point in a few months and go, oh yeah, remember that? Hopefully that'll be the case. But the bottom line is you don't want to let this stretch, and we'll go a little longer than there. And Johnny Bender says, agreed, Connor, 4, depending on Ehlers' injury news. Keep your thoughts coming on the Jets, and we will have some time for NFL takes as well. Of course, fan feedback is brought to you by Fans First, by fans, for fans, no fees. Check out the seat today, the site today at fansfirst.ca. All right, getting back to our Jets Roundtable. And this was bound to happen at some point, guys, but the fact that Ehlers is out at the same time the first line has gotten a little cold affects everything. Obviously, the power play has been effective, and the top line, while they did have some chances over the course of the weekend, just hasn't been clicking over the last little while. And Connor, I mean, I would say that this is, I kind of used this term before, a bit of a market correction. I mean, they were playing so hot, the team was so hot, everyone knew that this wasn't going to continue forever, and now we're sort of seeing it a bit.
Yeah, and I don't know. People talk so much about the playoffs last year and how the Jets were kind of an easy out. But if the top line is going to be going on these wild swings where they started the season being outscored 9-2 at 5-on-5, and everyone was concerned about them, and then they clawed all the way back and went on a red hot stretch for the next 10 games and even got their goal differential in the positives. And then now on this 6-game road trip, kind of reverted back to that early season form that we saw. It's just too inconsistent for the top line. And there's going to be swings over the course of the season, but these are long, extended stretches where they're getting outplayed heavily and then outplaying their opponents heavily. And I can't help but think that Mark Scheifele's injury has a little bit to do with this. He's not technically officially hurt, but I think we all know that he's kind of playing through something. 0 goals, 2 assists, and a -4 with only 10 shots on goal for the entirety of the 6-game road trip for Mark Scheifele. So I think that has really affected the top line. Kyle Connor isn't really driving as much either, with Mark Scheifele maybe on the wing a little bit more. So these wild, inconsistent swings from the top line are kind of have to stop, or else the Jets are going to have a few more 3-game losing streaks going forward.
Yeah, there is a lot on that line. And Remis, I mean, the bar, as I said, was set so high. And you know what? Maybe I need to own some of this. I believe after the Florida game, when Scheifele had the hat trick, I believe I suggested to you that with the Canadian team being named essentially today, that we should be taking Mark Scheifele in every one of these next 6 games on the road trip, because he'll be wanting to put a stamp on his case to be part of Team Canada. And I don't know whether at that point that hurt him, I cursed him, or what, Reem, but it's quite clear that we haven't seen as much out of Scheif as we did in the first 20-odd games of the season, where he was putting up numbers along with the best in the game.
Yeah, those guys were on such a heater, and it really took a step back here. I mean, Gabriel Velarde he's only got 2 points on this road trip. Kyle Connor, he scored against Pittsburgh where he had that Gordie Howe hat trick, but didn't score since. Chipped in 3 assists. So you just haven't seen it, Huss, from this top line, and we didn't see it on the power play the last 2 games where they had opportunities. And yeah, I mean, you can talk about Nikolai Ehlers not being there on the power play, but he doesn't play in the top line. It's these 3 guys. They're going to need more out of them, and it's tough when Mark Scheifele seemingly not playing at 100%. We'll see, what happens here on Tuesday. But it's tough, Huss. I mean, Mark Scheifele, he's got 2 points of his own on this road trip and doesn't have a goal since that 3-goal game against Florida. So as we talked about with you, and I see Gregory Liverpool in chat. Shout out to Gregory. He says his level of concern is at a 4, and there's winnable games this week to right the ship. And that's the thing. You're home for 1 and go on the road for 2 more. I mean, how many times can they just end a road trip?
It is a bizarre schedule.
Like, come home. How many times do you come home for 1 in this extended stretch?
Twice.
Very strange.
They had like 4 on the road or something like that.
They had
and then 1
3.
game.
And then
six on the road,
And
one, and another 2. Like, I can, that's why we were saying, like, it's one thing to come home, but if you're just coming home for one game, doesn't it just basically turn into a 15-game road trip that happens to have 2 games in Winnipeg? I mean,
yes.
Hey, listen, you better get it out early and get it done, and that's what the team has done. And listen, they're still in a really, really good spot. But to Gregory's points about being winnable games, I mean, you know what? Listen, if you fancy yourself as one of the best teams in the league, and you've got the best record in the league, every game is going to be a winnable game. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you should win each and every game. That's obviously not going to happen. And I think, Connor, these last 2 games, the Vegas game and the Dallas game, while the result, sure, yes, concerning, you don't like losing 3 in a row, I will say this, and I kind of agree with Neil Pionk. I mean, I thought the effort was there. They were a little bit undermanned. You know the team's banged up from all the hockey that they've played. I mean, you play those games 10, 15 times overall. I mean, the Jets are going to have their fair share of wins. And, you know, as I said, you know, things kind of even out a little bit over a while. Were they a historically great team? Maybe not. Probably not. But listen, going into these games right now, the focus has to be on, first and foremost, getting back to your winning ways at home before getting back out on the road. And then you can kind of come back home, get into a bit of a groove with some consistent time at home once this next week is finally over.
Yeah, I mean, this schedule, I said it on Winnipeg Jets Weekly. If you want a bright spot from the Jets kind of sliding as of late, 2-4 on the road trip, 3-6 in their last 9 games, it's that even before the season, we outlined this as the toughest part of the schedule because of, you know, this stretch where they're only coming home for 1 game. I think it ends up being technically a 14-game road trip where, yeah, you come home for 1 game. That's not a homestand. That's just you traveling and then traveling again. It's like an extension of the road trip. So this is, not only was it tough for travel and all these games on the road, but it came against tough competition. Dallas, Vegas, you lose Sandberg, you lose Ehlers. Like this, the fact they've only lost 3 straight so far is I think, a positive. And the fact they beat Minnesota also was a positive given the circumstances. But yeah, coming home here, and we're going to talk about it in a second here, but this schedule, some lighter competition. You still only come home for 1 game and then hit the road for 2 more before coming home again for an extended stretch. But the quality of opponent definitely goes down for the remainder of December. And then the Jets in January, that's when they make up all these games at home with, like, I think an 8-game homestand or a 6-game homestand. Like, they play a ton of home games in January, and they'll make up for this time away from home.
I don't know whether this is by design. It probably isn't. I mean, if there was ever a time maybe for the team to get away from Winnipeg, I would suggest January might be that case. But I'll tell you what, bring teams here in the bite of the Winnipeg winter and make them tough it out. I'm here for it. The Blues did have those 2 real impressive wins after Monty took over at MSG, 5-2 over the Rangers, and then that 3-0 shutout heading into the Thanksgiving week. They lost on the weekend to the Flyers at home, and now we're here. So 1-2 under Jim Montgomery, and we will get to all of that. Reem, listen, if Ehlers is out for any extended period of time, how do you think the team handles that roster-wise? Because David Gustafson's been the extra forward. He got into the game on the weekend. The game yesterday, I should say, with Ehlers out and Iafallo moving up. Do you think that's the way they do it? Or might they think about potentially, if we are talking about a big hole in the top 6, potentially giving a look to a guy like Brad Lambert, albeit on a short period of time when you've got a guy like Ehlers that's out. You think you might have someone that could come in and, bring a little bit more offensive pop than what you might be getting by pulling somebody up from the bottom 6.
Yeah, with Ehlers out, I think it's pretty clear the Lowry line is actually even more now than we talked about before being the sack line. I think that's really the second line, especially the way Perfetti hadn't really scored in 11 games until Friday, but a bit way to step up by him. But yeah, try Iafallo there. Maybe you do look to break up that line and put Niederreiter there. He's shown he can score. But if you want to say, hey, we have Nikolai Ehlers, what kind of player is he? A speedy guy, shifty. Do you look at bringing in Brad Lambert, I think you might have to consider it if he's going to be out long term. See what he can do. Give him a couple games, or they seem to be the type of organization that says, "Hey, we're going to bring up a guy. It's with the intent of him staying there long term. We're not going to jerk a guy around, a young player like that, send him up and back." But it seemed to have a similar type of playing style. Maybe it would be a fit there, but that would be a very big injury. So we'll see what happens.
I hope this is just a topic that we're throwing out here and we don't have to talk about it again. Mm-hmm. But and listen, I think Iafallo has been everything we could have asked for and more this year, Connor. I mean, he's been great on the second power play unit. He's been awesome on the PK. And that fourth line has been great. And listen, he has scored in the high teens. As far as though the speed and the creativity of Nikolai Ehlers, that is going to be a massive, massive hole. And listen, as I said, hopefully we don't have to talk about this. But if there is a hole in the lineup by Nikolai Ehlers for a few weeks, I would not at all be adverse to seeing what a guy like Brad Lambert could come in and do in a few games. And I think that excitement of a young player kind of coming into the lineup, I think might be some energy that the team could use, because this is what gets taxed the most. The mental energy that you bring in night after night with all of this travel. And Arniel talked about it. I mean, there's been some mental mistakes that popped out, one in particular on that winning goal, according to the head coach. It's not something we've seen in the past. Usually we've got a clear delineated top 13 or top 14 and guys will just move up as it. But I would be here for the conversation on maybe giving someone like Brad a look if there was a hole in the top 6, because let's face it, that's where he's going to end up if he's going to achieve what I think the organization feels that he's capable of at the NHL level. And it's certainly where he's playing in the A.
Yeah, absolutely. And what Remis said about the Jets organization typically being one where they send a player up and they don't want to see him again. That's what they've kind of acted on in the past. But I'm here for the conversation as well. I brought up how this schedule really lightens up for the Jets in terms of the quality of opponent in December. They play the Wild and the Leafs going into the Christmas break. But before that, they play Boston, Vegas. Those are the only 2 tough teams. And then the rest are really, I want to say bottom fears, like Chicago, Buffalo, Columbus, St. Louis. Like, these teams aren't making the playoffs this year outside of a miraculous run. And to have Brad Lambert come in and maybe play 5 games just to fill in for Nikolai Ehlers, just to get a look, I don't see why not. I'd be here for the conversation. Do I think the Jets are going to do it? I don't, because, again, they're typically an organization where if it's long-term, you might see Brad Lambert. But for the short term, if it's a week-to-week thing, I don't think we see Lambert. But I would love to see it, because he's not only a fascinating player, but a polarizing player, and a young one at that.
One thing they could look at doing as well. I mean, the way, if Ehlers is out and you're not going to, you're looking at bringing Lambert, why not move around the top line? Gabe Vilardi just, spent the whole road trip taking faceoffs. I remember the days when Mark Scheifele would be out and Blake Wheeler would move over to center. Why don't they look at something like that? Or, Kyle Connor and Cole Perfetti have shown some chemistry. You might be forced to break up that top line and, put a little more balance. I mean, if they're not scoring right now altogether, maybe give them a couple of games off, and you can always go back to it going forward. I mean, it doesn't have to be, just, hey, call it Brad Lambert and plug him in. If they don't want to do that, you probably have to look at moving around that top line as today, diversify the scoring a little.
I think it's a great point. And listen, I assume that we will probably start off with Connor, Scheifele, and Vilardi together for tomorrow night's game. But, considering, the fact that the goals haven't been going in for that group, if they get into the point where things just aren't working tomorrow, I wouldn't be surprised if we see maybe a little shakeup of the top 6, depending on, how the game is going and where everybody is at. It's a lot more about not getting your top guys scoring and all that, but Canadian market, we have to talk about the biggest topic, the 6 defensemen. What did you think Friday when you heard about the lineup changes, and then obviously going into the game on Sunday that Miller was back in, but Stan was staying and Billy Hanel was spending a second straight game in the press box?
Yeah, I think I think the initial reaction I had, and I said this on Sunday morning on WST Sunday Live, is I thought Colin Miller was kind of ahead of that whole rotational, we need fresh legs, sub him out kind of thing that you typically see from fourth line forwards or third pair defensemen. But I thought Colin Miller's been great on that third pair. Maybe he went to the coaching staff and said, hey, I need a game off, or the coaching staff noticed that he's been a little fatigued, so that's why he was out. But that was my initial reaction. I thought Colin Miller has been great this year, and to take him out as a rotational guy, I think was surprising. Dylan Coghlan was fine, I thought. Logan Stanley, I said this on Sunday morning as well. I didn't think that he earned another game with how he played Friday night against Vegas, and then he did earn another game. I think that this strictly comes down to size. I really do. I think the Jets, with the loss of Dylan Sandberg, think they need to make up size on their blue line. And I think that is what is driving this decision, because like you said earlier on in the show, Huss, I thought Ville Heinola played well on Monday, especially for it being his first NHL game in 23 months. And then on Wednesday against LA, I thought him and Miller were great on the third pair as well. And then heading into Friday, giving them a night off if you wanted to do that, because Heinola had played 4 games that week and he just came back. I get it. But I think that the decision on Sunday in Dallas, I think, was strictly driven by the fact that Logan Stanley is 6'7", and they were playing against a Central Division opponent and needed some size in there. And hey, they shortened the bench in the third period on their blue line. So that tells you all you need to know about how that decision went.
Yeah, well, and not to mention the PK got an extensive workout. Now, I think one of the calls was really unfortunate on him, but yeah, I mean, listen, when there's 3 of them, there's still 2 other ones that you can kind of make a statement on it. I thought Stanley was fine when he was playing earlier on in the year. And listen, it didn't cost them. They won a lot of football. They won a lot of hockey games, and they're being at it. The one thing that it keeps coming back to me, and this is not a new take by me, I get that what they hope to get out of Logan, I'm just not sure we're ever seeing that on any sort of a consistent basis. And like, listen, it would be a little different if, in either one of those games, everything went crazy and he beat the piss out of somebody and, okay, this is the guy that we're doing it. But I mean, he's not an overly physical guy. I think he's got 13 games and he's got 13 hits on the season. He's got 3 blocked shots. I mean, this is a guy that is coming in and, unfortunately at times is just not built to be able to handle some of the high octane guys that are coming at him right now. And I don't know whether that's going to change. Like, I get that they put a lot into him. I was just surprised that after the way Ville played in those first 2 games that he was coming out of the lineup. And as I said, you can get proven right or you can get proven wrong based on what happens in the future. They made those decisions, and if anything, Stan was on the wrong end of the highlights, shall we say. Prominent on the highlight reel for the wrong reasons through those 2 games, and that wasn't something that we said for Ville Heinola. I think everyone would agree, though, that they do want to have some size. They do want to have some strength in that blue line. They're missing a ton of it with Dylan Sandberg out, and maybe because of that is the reason why they're kind of leaning on Stan right now. But it's hard to take it, Connor. It's hard to take it any other way, especially from hearing from Scott Arniel speak after the game yesterday, that, like it or not, for a lot of fans out there, Stanley is at a certain place on the depth chart, and other guys like Ville Heinola aren't quite there yet.
And to go back to your point on the Jets not seeing what they need to see out of Logan Stanley, he's 26 years old. I don't think we're going to see some revelation here from 26-year-old Logan Stanley, who's played 150 career NHL games. Scott Arniel said he's not getting any better sitting in the press box. Neither is Ville Heinola, who's younger and as chomping at the bit for his opportunity. And one thing that I found really interesting, and why I think that Stanley was in the lineup strictly because of size on Sunday, Ville Heinola, on Monday, in his first NHL action in 23 months, fresh off of an ankle injury and ankle surgery, played 14 and a half minutes against the Minnesota Wild, and 4.5 of it came in the third period. You'll remember also he drew a crucial penalty with 7 minutes left, put the Jets on the power play, and they took a 3-1 lead. Sunday against the Dallas Stars, when the Jets need that size and they need Logan Stanley and need the fresh legs, they shortened the bench in the third period. Logan Stanley didn't even crack 11 minutes of total time on ice, played just over 2 minutes in the third period. and took 3 penalties. So Ville Heinola, in his first NHL action in 23 months, is drawing penalties with 7 minutes left to give the Jets eventually a 3-1 lead. And Logan Stanley, when he's in the lineup on Sunday, is being benched in the third period because he took 3 penalties in the first 2. Like, I think that's really all that needs to be said with these two. And it's going to be interesting to see who's in the lineup on Tuesday.
Well, that's the question. That is the question now. Remo, I'll put this to you. Who's the 6th defenseman tomorrow night against the St. Louis Blues?
I think it's going with Ville. I mean, how do you put Stan in after he took 3 penalties? I think Ville had a good game, and on a night where no one really did, he was solid, and he hasn't made those mistakes. I think he's earned an opportunity. We'll see what happens tomorrow, but I think it's a pretty easy decision. I get what you're trying to do. You know, I talk about Nintendo Ice Hockey. They want to replace a big guy with a big guy, but I think what they've been saying the same things. We want Stan to be. They've heard the same song and dance. You hear Shane Malloy talk about draft +5 in terms of development path. It's been a lot more than 5 years since 2016, as much as I wish it wasn't. But I think, you know, Ville's, he's earned an opportunity. He's healthy. Put him in the lineup. There's a spot for him.
Yeah. Now, just to clarify, is that your personal decision or what you think is going to happen tomorrow? Because I'm not sure that those are totally
I'm mixing
in
both.
sync.
I think they will put him in. I think they
Connor?
will put him in.
I think Ville goes back in, although I'm scared to say it. But
and I guess SK in the chat says, didn't you hear the coach? Stan isn't getting any better sitting in the press box. He's got to keep playing. I don't know. I think sometimes after the game, you're not going to go and like bury a guy after taking three penalties. He'll say, I don't know, like we want to break down Arneal's coach speak where he's saying, you know, last week before Ville comes in, he's like, oh, we need Ville, we need him in the lineup. And then he's saying, oh, we need Stan in the lineup. Well, there's only one spot for both of them. So I think he's just trying to root for both guys openly to the media. Maybe behind closed doors, other stuff is going on. I mean, the actions speak louder than words, where you put the guy in and then you don't play him in the third period.
Yeah, no, listen, I think it is a good point. Should we play the Dave Lowry clip?
Dave Lowry?
This is so funny.
Well, I mean, they've been saying, and so
tee this up because he sent this to me on the weekend, and I spent a good amount of time laughing my head off in my place with no one else around. This is just a little blast from the past, folks, because this is, I mean, we could have probably taken a segment from a show 2 years ago and just, you know, put the audio to it of us sitting here talking about this, and it might be similar. But what was the date on this again?
Okay, so like it was basically the clip yesterday was Arneal saying Stan's got to get in the lineup. And I'm like, I've heard this before. Like, we've heard them say Stan, like, why is he getting in? Stan's got to get in. We got to play Stan. And it reminded me, you know, we had this exact same debate 2 years ago. And it was Dave Lowry behind the bench and they talking about Stan, and he was getting in over Samberg. And I remember we were also saying, you know, being a bit confused, saying, hey, you know, Samberg has played well. He's in the opportunity. Same with Ville. And then Dave Lowry was asked about putting Stan in the lineup, and he basically said, Stan's got to get in. And that was what Arneal said yesterday. So here, I found the clip. It is from
It's a trip down memory lane here on Winnipeg Sports Talk on the same topic.
This is, I mean, we've been doing this for, this shows you how long we've been talking about this here.
Well, the big thing was that it was time to put Stan in. And obviously we talk with young players and the consistency and, you know, the speed. Sandy, it was a night in Florida where, you know, he wasn't as sharp as he had been. And we had talked to him that when you have breaks in the schedule, especially for a young player, there's a huge learning curve on how you have to prepare, how you have to look after yourself. We wanted to take him out tonight. We wanted to give him an opportunity to reset, and we talked to him about that. And for Big Stan, it was about an opportunity to come in and and to play. He's been working to try and get his game back to the level that we expect it to be at.
Not a new topic here. And I will remind everyone how that turned out. Dylan Samberg continued to progress, became a top 4 defenseman on the Winnipeg Jets. And we're going to see Stan. We're going to see Villy in the lineup. It will be interesting to see how things go tomorrow. Nice little super chat in from T. Konopali. It's painfully obvious the Jets know they need grit and toughness on D. It's obvious it's not Stan, and they won't try Bauer. So go out and get it in a Gudis or whoever. This has been over 2 years. And I don't think there's any doubt, guys, that when we talk about this division, playing teams like Dallas and Vegas who are going to be measuring sticks in the West, that they would love to have a little bit more size, strength, and nasty in it. Stan, I guess, is the guy that they're throwing in there thinking that they're getting that. I think everyone would agree that that would be an area that they could certainly get more out of potentially on a move. Although we talk about adding to the blue line, well, I mean, listen, you got a top 4, including Samberg, that's played really well this year. Colin Miller's looked really good. And then whether it's Hayden Fleury, whether it's Logan Stanley, whether it's Billy Heinola, all battling for playing time. Fleury, of course, right now up in the top 4. You can't dress 9 or 10 defensemen. So these are the discussions right now and some of the decisions that, the coaches are dealing with right now. And we'll see how things look tomorrow. But we've got a couple votes for Villy. I would like to see him back in. But as I say, much like waiting to find out the status of Nikolai Ehlers, I'm not even going to try to guess. We'll just wait for the coach to speak after the morning skate tomorrow and see how things look for it. Listen, don't go anywhere because we do want to get to some NFL talk. Lots of interesting stuff coming out of the weekend. Just before we do that, though, a big cheers to all of you from our friends at Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right, cheers to our friends at Little Brown Jug and a big happy holidays from our friends at Boston Pizza. Folks, great deal right now on at BP. When you buy a $50 BP gift card, you'll receive a $10 bonus gift card, which is a 20% bonus. But if you have a long list and are buying for a company or office, you'll get an additional 10% in gift cards with a $1,000 purchase, meaning a 30% bonus overall on gift card orders of $1,000. BP is also a great place to have your holiday party. You can try the new holiday menu in the dining room, have a casual party in the sports bar, or have the BP catering team set up and serve at your office. And don't forget the new holiday menu, including the spicy shrimp fettuccine and the ribbon wing duo available right now at your local BP. BP will be rocking tonight for Monday Night Football. We're going to get NFL right away. And, of course, Tuesday, and then back onto the road Thursday, 6 p.m., Saturday afternoon at 3:30 against the Blackhawks. Pick a player contest, spin to win, great prizes for every night of Winnipeg Jets hockey at your local Boston Pizza. And, man, what a sale on the weekend for Black Friday over at Royal Sports. But the holiday season is just getting going at Royal, which is the sports superstore in town for over 40 years with inventory unlike anything you will see literally anywhere. And whether it's on the Royal Sports side or the King Skate, Snow, and Surf side, you can take care of pretty much that entire list with one trip to Royal Sports, the best in Winnipeg Jets, Winnipeg Blue Bombers, merchandise, and more. NHL, NFL, international soccer, Blue Jays and Major League Baseball, NBA, you name it, they've got it. The biggest hockey section in town and all the cool things over on the King's Skate, Snow, and Surf side. Pop by and see them, 750 Pembina Highway before Christmas, and make sure to follow them on Instagram for the latest merchandise drops, sale information, and great holiday gift ideas over at Royal Sports Winnipeg. One other thing I should mention to you, by the way, when you're thinking about the holidays, December 21st, huge game against the Minnesota Wild. I don't think there's many teams that Jet fans like beating more than Minnesota. We'll have a chance to do that Saturday night, December 21st. That's our next Winnipeg Sports Talk game of the month. So if you would like to join us, we're 2-0 on the season with wins over Pittsburgh and Florida. Let's make it 3-0 on somewhat of a WST holiday party night. Click on the link in the description of the video, or if you're listening on the pod, go to winnipegjets.com/WST. Grab your tickets with us in Section 316 for Saturday, December 21st against the Minnesota Wild, and we'll see you there. Other great Cyber Monday deals going on right now for the Jets. I think 25% off at the store and more is up. Check out their website, winnipegjets.com, or their social media channels for more on today's deals for Cyber Monday. We just had quite the, and this is a nice little transition over to the NFL. Reem, Reg Dunlop in chat. Should the Jets sign that Houston Texans cornerback to lay out some heavy hits? That was an ugly, ugly play on Trevor Lawrence yesterday in that Jags-Texans game.
Yeah, I was watching that one on Red Zone where they pulled it up, and it was, pretty unnecessary, I think. And Trevor Lawrence, he's out and not a great look, and I don't know if there's any discipline, but the Jaguars went after him. You don't want to see that, and hopefully Trevor Lawrence is able to recover and come back. Mac Jones came in and played all right, but that was you don't see too many of those anymore.
No, and a big fight ensuing, not surprisingly. And Connor, we're going to focus in on NFL, but to be honest, it kind of reminded me of Saturday. Complete insanity in college football. So many fights and brawl in particular. I mean, the choke job by Ohio State, losing at home to a Michigan team that was so undermanned, losing now 4 in a row. Their season, they're going to be going to the college football playoff, and they could win the whole thing, and it would be so tarnished by what happened on Saturday, getting humiliated by their arch rivals in the fashion that they did.
Yeah, I saw some reaction from Ohio State fans that their head coach, Ryan Day, even if they win the national championship, he's gone because they've lost 4 straight games to Michigan. And even if you win a national championship, you just can't lose 4 straight times to Michigan. And this was supposed to be the time that they were supposed to win. They were the second-ranked team in the country, Michigan a 5-loss team. And college football, this was their rivalry week. I watched the Texas A&M game on ESPN later that night. 110,000 people at Kyle Field. Just an incredible atmosphere. Texas and Texas A&M were in different conferences for over a decade now, so that rivalry hasn't even been played for a while. And then, obviously there was the brawl in the OSU game and the brawl in the Jacksonville game because of that hit. The way I watch NFL football on Sunday with all my buddies, we have a bunch of TVs, and then our one big TV is Red Zone. But all the other TVs are on separate games, and they just kept showing that hit in every single game. It's here's a game break. Let's go look. The Jags game, there was this massive hit, and let me tell you, that hit never looked better. I probably watched the replay 50 times. It never looked better on any of the replays, the 50 times that I saw it yesterday. But, yeah, it was crazy.
Epic cheap shot. And college football has an issue of brawling after all these big rivalry games at the end. All right. Let's get to it. Why don't we start? Well, listen, we'll get to the Chiefs in a minute because I still don't feel good about this, although I'm happy that we're 11-1. But, Connor, let's start with the snow game last night. What a kick in the nuts for CMC fantasy owners who waited all season for him to come in. Great start, out early, but man, what a bizarre game. I cannot remember a situation in a game that was affected by weather where a team was so completely victimized by the elements, far more so than their opponents. And I don't know whether the equipment managers are feeling the heat today or what in San Francisco, but they seem to be completely unprepared for what they got. And it probably shouldn't have been a surprise considering the weather in Buffalo all year long. That was a game they had to have. And I mean, they're not officially done because of how tight that division is. But man, it's pretty hard to imagine the Niners turning this around, and that will be crazy if San Francisco, a preseason favorite in the NFC, is not even in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think you can stick a fork in the Niners. They've just had way too many injuries this year, and Brock Purdy yesterday, I mean, doesn't have maybe the arm strength at the best of times that a Josh Allen maybe has. Comes in with a sore shoulder with the elements. CMC was the lone bright spot. The only way that the Niners were going to win that game is if they ran the ball with him 20 times and he was super effective. And on 7 carries, I think he had 55 yards. So that game plan was working early on. And what a swing it was, because it was a run where CMC was one shoestring tackle away from taking it about 60 yards to the house, but he gets tripped up, and that's the play that he sprained his PCL on. The very next carry, you saw him just slide and then go to the sideline and eventually not return. And they're saying it's probably going to be season ending. But if he doesn't get caught by that shoestring tackle, walks into the end zone, the Niners would then take the lead at the time. The run game's working. CMC's healthy. This is exactly what they needed to do. But now he gets shoestring tackled and injured on the play. And that's just kind of a microcosm of the 49ers season so far. They've just so many injuries. I think they have the most games missed by Pro Bowl or All Pro players from last year heading into this year. So it's not a surprise to me, at least, that they're struggling.
Yeah, it's been like a slow burn basically with San Francisco, and you've been hoping, they're good enough to get back in. Can they get their guys back in? It just didn't happen. Remo, was an amazing game. It's crazy. We had 2 epic snow games, both in prime time this week. Again, the white unis look like ghosts out there when the Niners were out on the field. But to me, I mean, the big story out of last night is another massive win by the Buffalo Bills, who are loving life right now at the top of the AFC East. Just 1 game back at Kansas City for the 1 seed right now. And Josh Allen, I think, as of today, after yesterday's performance and what Lamar and the Ravens weren't able to do, I think we can pretty much start putting him in pen and start engraving the trophy to hear his name announced as the NFL MVP for this season.
Yeah, the visuals from that game, as terrible as the footing is, are absolutely incredible. And those guys diving into the pylons, diving into the snow, doing snow angels. I'm here for a snow game once in a while. I don't think you'd want it to be a regular thing, but it does, it's eye-catching, and the 2 in primetime did look pretty awesome. But we do have to give Josh Allen a shout-out, Huss. The first QB ever in the same game to have a rushing TD, a passing TD, and a receiving touchdown, and did have, for fantasy owners, did have a passing touchdown and a receiving touchdown on the same play. The 4th quarterback to ever do that, Brad Johnson, was the first. House. I know you've got experience with that in fantasy. Although it doesn't get a reception on the play. It was a heads-up play by Amari Cooper, who was a nice addition for them mid-season with all the receiver trades. So, yeah, Josh Allen, he can do it all. Pretty awesome. And Rob Mahoney wonders if his celebrity girlfriend will start to get, what does she need to do, Haley Steinfeld, to get more attention? Because it seems to be another player's celebrity girlfriend gets all the attention on national broadcasts.
Yeah, because she's Taylor Swift. Because she's Taylor Swift.
Who are we talking about?
I mean, I'm not as familiar with Haley. What's her last name? Steinberg?
Haley Steinfeld. Yeah, you don't know her?
Steinfeld.
American Steinfeld with a T.
No, I don't know her. I've heard of her.
She's got 20 million Instagram followers. She's no slouch, Huss.
Guys, the bar, there's Taylor Swift and then there's everybody else. I mean, that's just the world we live in. I hate to say it. Listen, if Haley can drop a spell on the Bills' opposition with 15 seconds left in the game, like the Queen did on the weekend, maybe she'll get a little more extent. I think Taylor Swift is the real MVP because there is no business. The Chiefs had absolutely no business winning that game. And I know people are saying that I've been avoiding that. We just figured we'd get to the Sunday Nighter first. So we finished the show on Friday. We had a pre-tape, so I watched some of it. I paused it. I wasn't even looking at the chat for people to spoil it for me. And then I went back and just dialed into the game at home. Usually I'll go out, but I was already kind of into it, so I'm just watching this game. And of course, I was also quite keen on the Chiefs minus 12.5. And I thought this was a game that was the get right game for Kansas City. After narrowly beating Carolina the week before, they were going to come in and really stick it to the Raiders. And I mean, listen, everything was going fine. They were up by 13. And then in a matter of about 2.5 minutes, it went from 16-3 Kansas City to 17-16 for the Raiders. And I was rattled, absolutely. Now, the Raiders had missed 3 field goals as well. They got stopped on a 4th down. I mean, there were a bunch of ways that game would have even been more into the Raiders' favor. And then the Chiefs decide to punt. They get the ball inside their 10. They've got no timeouts. And they go all the way down the field, just inside the 35. There's 15 seconds left. And I mean, I joke that Taylor Swift put a spell on the Raiders, but I mean, that's about the only explanation for what happened at that point. The rookie center getting spooked and firing the ball back at O'Connell when he's not even looking. Chiefs get the ball. There were some questions as to whether it was a false start, whether it was an illegal shift. To be honest, I don't really think it was either of those. It was just basically an ill-timed snap at the worst possible time. And check this, guys. Since 2000 in the NFL, the last 25 seasons, no team has ever had the ball where the Raiders had, down 1 or 2 points in the final 30 seconds of a game and turn the football over. And yet, that's what had happened. I mean, it has been... I was rattled after the game. I'm still sort of not over it. Now, it's a weird way to feel about a win to put a team at 11-1, but I will say this, that isn't going to even come close to cutting into the playoffs against the caliber of teams that are going to make it in the AFC. They've got a huge game at home in prime time next Sunday against the Chargers. It's get right time for Kansas City. It hasn't cost them yet so far in the standings, but there's no one that follows this team that will tell you that they're playing even close to their potential right now. And the other thing that was so rattling was what was happening with their tackles. I mean, Max Crosby is a beast, but I mean, Wanye and Taylor were getting it was so bad they had to move Joe Thuney, their all-pro guard, to left tackle in the 4th quarter. And something has to change right now. So yes, there is... Like we were talking level of concern with the Jets earlier on. I'd be lying if I wouldn't say that the level of concern was considerably higher right now for Chiefs fans, despite still being on top of the AFC at 11-1.
Remis.
Do you guys have any? I'm sure you guys want to take a shot or two.
Mic drop.
Feel free.
I do. There's absolutely no way the Chiefs are even like a top 3 or top 5 team in football. Like this is so ridiculous. And watching them,
whatever happened to you are what your record says you are.
No, it's a lie. And this Chiefs team is proof. They're locked into a game that they have no business winning against the Raiders, who have 2 wins or 3 wins at home. Like I can't fathom the amount of luck that it took. And then the Broncos have been a good story this year. We could talk about tonight's game, but like they have a field goal. What was it? Like a 40-yard attempt for the win, and it gets blocked, which you don't see happen like once or twice maybe.
Credit to special players stepping up and making special plays at key times.
I did enjoy this tweet from late Friday night from Ian McMillan at Ian MacBets on X. Ways Chiefs have pulled out wins this year. Likely's toenail was out of bounds. A questionable penalty call on the Bengals. Non-call on the Chiefs versus Falcons. Which one was that one? I don't remember that one. The Bucks don't go for 2, and then the Chiefs won the coin toss in overtime. The blocked field goal against the Panthers, a last-second field goal, and the botch snap by the Raiders. It's just like... They just seem to always, good teams find a way to win, right, Hustler? It just seems like they always seem to find a way, or a call goes.
Ian Mac Betts is a perfect example of the whiners that take over social media and give it such a bad name. Give it to my guy Nick Wright for setting everybody straight. Here's the rebuttal. The Chiefs continue to make otherwise smart people so dumb. Likely's toenail would have put the Ravens down 1. Still need to get 2 point or win in OT. The Bengals penalty was the definition of DPI. The non-call versus Atlanta happened with 5 minutes left and the Chiefs leading. Tampa Bay would have had to make the 2-pointer and or could have stopped KC in OT. He said with the Denver game, I agree. It's unfair. The Chiefs get to play defense on special teams. Also agree unfair that Chiefs get to make kicks. And it is important to note, though, if the Raiders don't botch that snap, they are bringing out a kicker that had missed from 52, 54, and 58 from 50 yards in a cold game where it was very clear the ball wasn't traveling as far as it normally did. And on top of it all, if they give, even if you just said, oh, yeah, it's a false start, you got to move back 5, then it's a 55-yarder. So you all can think that the Chiefs are basically 4-8. They're really 11-1. They won an NFL record 14 straight one-score games. So the Jets need to just watch a little more Chiefs, I think, and realize, and then just get back onto winning every one-goal game, and then we'll all be happy.
Here, I read that tweet. I thought that was just facts. I didn't think that was like whining or complaining. That was just reciting what happened. It's how I read it.
How can you complain about a team stepping up and making a big play with the game on the line?
I wasn't complaining.
Betts was.
I don't think he was complaining. I think he was just, I don't think he was complaining. He was just saying the crazy ways that they've pulled it out at the last second. People try to think try to infer stuff from your tweets. I thought that was just a list of facts.
That was a very biased, bitter
I didn't think it was at all.
Alternative facts that Kellyanne Conway would have admired.
I didn't think so. I thought it was just a reciting of history. So
hey, moving away from the Chiefs for a second to another team. Well, a team that I hate, but I begrudgingly have to admit is definitely a Super Bowl favorite, and another team I can't stand that everyone thinks is a Super Bowl contender that has now lost 5 times. Connor, what were your takeaways from the Eagles doing the job in M&T Bank Stadium against the Ravens?
My takeaway was that Saquon Barkley is probably the runner-up to Josh Allen in terms of MVP. And as someone who, as very biased as a 49ers fan last year, wanted some more noise for Christian McCaffrey to be MVP, if Saquon Barkley is on pace to break Eric Dickerson's, I know there's one extra game with Eric Dickerson way back, over 2,000 rushing yards. Saquon Barkley's on pace to break that. He does get the extra game, but still impressive nonetheless. I think he should be the runner-up for MVP. The Eagles, I think the Eagles and Lions are on a crash course to play in the NFC Championship. I don't think there's really any other teams in the NFC that are going to threaten those two because those two teams, I think, are a step above everyone else. And yeah, that was the best game on the slate, in my opinion. And the Ravens at home, I mean, I know it's a quality opponent, but they got to start winning some of these tougher games because like winning one-score games is a skill that Kansas City has perfected. Losing them is a skill as well, and Baltimore hasn't been able to overcome that this season.
Reem, listen, Philly is the real deal, and it's their defense. I mean, they're like, do I trust Jalen Hurts, if they're down 6 in the fourth quarter to drive the football, passing it the whole way? Probably not, but I don't know whether they're going to be in that situation with the way the defense is playing. I mean, they have some guys that have turned into... It's so funny. The Eagles are the most incompetent team in the National Football League at drafting receivers. And every other position they seem to nail every single time they go to the podium. It really is bizarre. But Reem, while we're talking about the Ravens and another disappointing loss, we got to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers going into Cincinnati, putting up 40 plus and beating the Bengals, essentially ending their season. And now the Steelers, already with the win over the Ravens this year, they're 9-3. The Ravens, so they're 2 losses better and 1 win better right now. And still, the Ravens need to have their bye week.
Yeah. First of all, if wondering if the Ravens are any good or not, when they lost to the Raiders at home and ruined my survivor pool, that's when, since then, they've been on the shit list, Hustler. So disappointing. You can't lose that type of game. And for the Steelers, I mean, they have this elite defense, but they've been looking for a quarterback for a while. And Justin Fields, he came in and, he didn't do a lot. They trusted him to manage the game and not make mistakes. But Russ, very good with the deep throws. They found some nice receivers in Austin. And Pickens is finally making an impact. But their point differential plus 72, that's better than the Ravens. I mean, what is that, second in the AFC behind the Bills, Hustler. So watch out for the Steelers team. They haven't had a quarterback for a while, and Russ showing, hey, he's not washed up. He can still lead a team, but it is the defense. Huss, that is their bread and butter.
I love this quote from Aristide. I remember how people criticized the Bombers for the assist we got from the Mount Royal Chinook in Montreal. Chiefs have some unseen force like that on their side. We know what it is. It was a little bit of pixie dust from that sweet about 10 in from the side on the weekend. Great game by Pittsburgh. Russie is back. Comeback player of the year, I think, is going to be Russell Wilson after this. Although I guess Sammy Darts is going to be in the mix as well. One guy that it won't be is Kirk Cousins. Because as much as Kirk Cousins probably was the favorite early on this season, I'm not sure if you guys saw that game yesterday against the Chargers. But if you want to talk about one player giving a game away, that's what happened yesterday. 4 picks, including a pick 6. And the last pick that he threw, that little lob ball right in the middle of 3 Chargers, was as bad a throw that I've seen in the NFL in forever. And it's nuts. I'm going to the game. You guys will be doing the show. Thanks again for next week, next Monday, a week today. I'm going to the Vikings Falcons game. I was kind of thinking this was going to be the comeback and return of Kirk O'Chains. It's going to go one of 2 ways. He's going to come back and completely ball out and just move on from last week. Or we could be seeing Michael Penix, I think, for the first time in an Atlanta uniform. And I don't think that's the way Kirk thought the homecoming was going to be. But, man, couple bad losses. That was brutal on the weekend. And all of a sudden, Baker and the Buccaneers are right back tied at the top of the division, having gone through the meat of their schedule so far.
Yeah, I think the Falcons, this whole time that they had been winning and leading the division, they weren't going to make that change because you can always fall on the sword that, hey, you're winning. But now that, like you said, the Bucs are in it, even without Chris Godwin, who they lost, and Mike Evans was out for 4 weeks there, we might see a change. And the Vikings defense is legit. They played really well against the Cardinals last week at home. And then this whole season, they put together a really strong year on the defensive side of things. So if Kirk Cousins throws, I don't know, another 2-3 picks at US Bank Stadium next week, you could definitely see Michael Penix finish the year out as the Falcons quarterback, if not be the surefire starter next season if they don't make the playoffs. But yeah, the Falcons and Kirk Cousins, I don't know. It's been such an up and down year. He'll have really good games and really bad games. It's odd to watch.
Yeah, the Remis, you obviously saw that yesterday. And like while we're talking like Falcons, Vikings, I mean, as ugly as Kirk Cousins was, the Vikings continue to do what good teams do, win those close games. 10-2 now after a big Houdini act, avoiding what would have been a crushing loss to the Cardinals at home, winning 23-22.
Yeah, I did watch a lot of that Chargers-Falcons game. I was expecting a big game from Justin Herbert. Well, they won. I thought his performance was pretty disappointing. Didn't throw for any interceptions, but also didn't throw for any touchdown passes. And they have their running back, J.K. Dobbins, injured, so they were really struggling. I thought to run the ball successfully. But hey, they got a win. And Kirk Cousins, yeah, that throw in the end zone, not great. I didn't see a ton of the Vikings, but I know they pulled it out at the end, and they've just seemingly finding a way over and over to get wins. It was a nice game for Justin Jefferson, saying, hey, look at me, I'm still here. Not 99 yards on 7 catches, and as Sam Darnold, it's kind of funny. You talk about Baker Mayfield, these quarterbacks who, get drafted, you're put in a pretty poor situation, but then you move on to a new team and maybe you put the right pieces around them. Threw for 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and the interceptions were a problem for him when they played the Jaguars. They did sign, speaking of quarterbacks in new situations, they did sign Daniel Jones last week. We'll see what it means for them moving forward. But the Vikings, defying all odds in that NFC North, very tough, Hustler, with the Lions and the Packers and the Vikings. You got 10-1, 10-2, and 9-3. It's a dogfight there. I know two of those teams, Lions and the Packers, play each other this week. So very exciting race there.
Yeah, we'll hit that in the lines right now at Coolbet. I kind of been maintaining for a good portion of the season that the top three teams in the NFC were all in the NFC North. You can't say that anymore. The Eagles are definitely part of that group. But to me, it's the Eagles. It's those three teams. Although I'll tell you what, and I know it was a close game yesterday with Tampa. Tampa has beaten Tampa's already beaten the Lions this year. They're the one team that has actually gotten a win against Detroit. They've also beaten the Philadelphia Eagles this year. So, and both on the road, by the way. Or no, the Eagles game was at home. The Lions game was on the road. And then they had that murderous stretch. They lost to the Ravens. They've lost to the Falcons twice, which is the reason why they're only tied right now. And then lost to the Chiefs, lost to the 49ers. Now they've got Raiders, Chargers, Cowboys, Panthers, Saints. I think we're going to be talking about Baker back in the playoffs representing the NFC South. All right, let's get over to the Coolbet lines tonight. We have the Cleveland Browns at the Denver Broncos this evening. The Broncos, 6.5-point favorites, minus 278 on the money line. 41 is the total. This is, a tale of two teams that had very different, I think, goals for this season. At the beginning of the year, you would have thought that Cleveland, with the roster that they'd assembled, would have been more likely to be in a wild card spot and be in the mix as opposed to being done. But no, it's the Broncos. And even with that devastating loss on the blocked field goal against Kansas City, Denver is still right in the thick of things and can get to 8-5 with a win tonight. I certainly think Denver's most likely to win this game. Remo, do you think that they can cover the number and win by a touchdown?
Oh, man, 6.5? That's tough. That's a lot of points. I'm going to say no. I know they've got a really good defense, but I think Jameis will keep it close, and maybe there's some type of backdoor cover. So I like what they've done with Bo Nix, but I think it's two good defenses. I'm going to say no. I'll say Cleveland covers.
Yeah, I don't know. Connor, do you have any feelings on this game tonight?
No, not really. I mean, the Browns are coming off of that snow globe win last
That was their
Thursday.
Super Bowl.
That was. And Jameis Winston with the whole, I'm so grateful. It's just an honor to play in Cleveland, Ohio.
He should be mic'd up every game.
He should. He definitely should. I just can't wait to see what he has to say pregame tonight in his little pregame interview, because they're going to stick a mic in front of his face every chance they can, because he's content gold. I think it's a bit at this point, like he's definitely playing into it, but it's still hilarious.
He's right out there. I mean, if you've seen any interview he's done, he is he's built different. It's kind of like he was raised on another planet or something like that, to be perfectly honest with you. Browns, Denver to finish up. And as you guys just mentioned, what a Thursday nighter we've got. Packers at Lions. Detroit, a 3.5-point favorite over Green Bay. Green Bay had the big win on Thursday night against the Dolphins. And the Lions, everyone's giving the Chiefs a hard time. Let's not let the Lions off the hook with what happened in the second half there. And the absolute botch of the clock by both Caleb Williams and Matt Eberflus that ended up with Eberflus on the unemployment line, Thomas Jones taking over going into this week. As far as the NHL goes tonight, we've got the Devils and Rangers dropping the puck at 6. New Jersey, a minus 123 favorite on the road at MSG. Rangers plus 105. The Leafs have been playing quite well. Got Matthews back. Nice win over Tampa on Saturday. They're big favorites, minus 435 against the Blackhawks, and minus 2.5 on the puck line. It's not 1.5. It's 2.5 for the game, plus 117 for them to win by 3. And then the Dallas Stars playing back-to-backs after playing yesterday. They are in Utah to take on the HC. Dallas, a short favorite, -122. And the Utah Hockey Club, 1+104. Any thoughts on the pucks there, Reem?
Yeah. Well, so Vegas on Friday beat the Jets in a really, really close game, Hustler. And the next night, who came into Vegas? Utah. And Utah spanked them. What was it, 6-0? I lost count. I lost count. So if history were to repeat itself, this time it's Utah at home. They should be beating Dallas, I don't know, 5-0 for sure. That's what happens. The Jets just soften them up, and now Utah knocks them over. I'm curious what's going to happen because I was watching that game Saturday. I figured Vegas was due for a couple goals. Couldn't even get one, ruining all my props. So I'm here for Utah. I want to see what they do.
I think we're going to get an exclusive up that we cranked out quickly in the lock shop today. We're going Bo Nix over 1.5 touchdowns. We're going Cortland Sutton over his yards prop receiving, which I think is 63.5. And you got to throw in a Jameis pick. I mean, primetime game with Jameis in it. I mean, that's maybe the lock of the year. So pay attention in the exclusives for that. We'll get that up a little bit later on. Couple things just before we go. NFL schedule. So this next week is the final week of fantasy football in the regular season for just about any league that knows what they're doing. Remis, I cannot believe how many teams are on the bye this week in the NFL. Denver, Indy, New England, Washington, Baltimore, and Houston all not playing this week. And man, you think about guys like with Jaden Daniels or Lamar or Derrick Henry. Huge holes in the lineup for what is like a playoff week for so many teams.
Yeah, that's why I don't like season-long fantasy football for a number of reasons. So if you are relying on one of those players, you should have looked at the schedule, Huss, before drafting and mark it down. That's why bye weeks, you got to look at them. But I do want to give a shout-out as far as we do a bit of a listener league, Huss. And how about this? BA split at the playoff point, leading our league in points, eliminated from the playoffs. Won't be making it. 4-8. He's 4-8 record, but he has the most points for. He's 27 points ahead of me. So shout out to BA split.
What are his points against?
Have to be first.
Not the second. They're the second most. Someone else has got significantly more, who's in 12th place. But shout out to, that's why I hate fantasy. I hate head-to-head. So I just want to pour one out for BA split in the chat.
BA, that's tough. That's tough to take. That's the beauty of it, too. You can benefit from it.
There's no beauty in that.
Well,
so,
of course there is. What about the guy that's getting in?
He's
pretty
beauty.
Fired up right now.
If you have the most points, I mean, that's why we have an award for most points in the regular season. And I know some leagues have
Flip
like
him a couple $100. Thanks.
Some leagues have a spot for the last wild card is the team with the most points who's not among. We don't have that. And some leagues
actually not a bad rule.
And some leagues, do median scoring where you don't actually play a person. I think you like the head-to-head trash talk aspect of it, but it is really dumb in terms of trying to actually determine the best team. So I'll pour one out for a BA split.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what? For everyone else that says, I had such a good team and I lost these close games and you're not going to be there, or even worse, you're in a situation that you shouldn't be in where you have to win this week and Lamar and Derrick Henry are on the bye, or Jaden Daniels isn't there, and
should have adjusted your rankings accordingly and not.
Well,
not
it's funny. Listen, I knew I was going to be in a tough spot and having to win next week, and I identified this a couple weeks ago. I've got C.J. Stroud, who hasn't really been doing much anyways. Although nice to have Nico Collins back in. Collins, who by the way salvaged my entire week. My picks were garbage, but I did have Nico Collins to have the most receiving yards on Sunday. That last catch, he took over Ladd McConkey by 2, and that one cashed at 8-1. So that really took some of the sting off of one of the worst weeks I can remember, between the Jets losing and Chiefs and everything like that. BA split to my guy Remis for backing him up. There you go. What a team. You guys could be could do it
take the
together
super
yesterday.
Thanks, BA.
Appreciate it, BA. So anyways, figure it out, folks. You might be, if you have not looked at your lineup yet for this upcoming week, you may be desperate. You may be using all of that fab budget on some ham and egger just to play because so many guys are out right now and your trade deadline's probably passed as well. One other thing, just before we go, do you guys realize that 3 weeks today, December 23rd, the Jets play the Leafs on Monday at 1:00 p.m.?
What?
Yes.
In Winnipeg?
It's a full day.
I knew
no,
Remis,
in
I knew
Toronto.
Remis had not seen this because
Oh.
I was thinking the same too. So I don't know what we're gonna do for a show. We may have to do something
Is that on Prime?
beforehand. Well, a 1:00 Prime game?
No, it's like a full day of hockey. It's like a full slate. Like the first game's at 11 a.m. or 11:30 a.m. Central here or noon, and then the Jets play at 1. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know why they're doing that.
Okay,
It's
wait.
a Monday.
The Monday, it's on
23rd.
TSN 3. They're in, so it's all day. There's games at, noon, 1,
Yeah.
Looking at it
and
now.
then 6. Oh, no, there's nothing at like 3. It's just afternoon games. That's so
busy
weird.
slate of games though. Busy slate of games.
I
But
guess-
yeah, and I think that is that kids game that the Leafs always have every year.
The kids
They've
can't
got the-
afford to go to games there.
Well, exactly. It's just rich people get to bring their kids. They're like, oh, well, it's just the Jets and it's an afternoon game, so we'll bring them for that one. But anyways, so I don't know. I mean, needless to say, we're not going to be doing a show live while the Jets are playing.
am I playing?
So we're gonna have to figure something out on that. Maybe we'll just put together a little WST holiday special and throw it up, and people can enjoy it over the course of the Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, which will be Christmas Day.
Yeah, we can do a best of or something. We haven't really decided what we're doing. There's no games on the 24th.
Maybe a special WST awards.
We
I've
could
got
just
many
take-
awards to give out for 2023. I'll tell you that.
We could just take the whole week off.
Maybe the best clip. Maybe the best clip of 2024 was Remo dropping the Dave Lowry
Yes.
from April. 3
Dave
years ago
Lowry
today.
mentioned.
That was well, it just feels like we've been having the same conversation for 2 years. So, probably maybe more.
we have been.
I don't know.
And it probably will
Continue.
rear its head again tomorrow when we find out who's playing tomorrow night for the Jets. Blues in town. Join us at 1:00. We will have the latest from the morning skate. We'll hear from Scott Arneal. We'll have a little bit of an idea about who's playing for the Winnipeg Jets, and obviously focus in on Jim Montgomery and the Blues coming into town. Tomorrow actually should be a fun show. Pagnata's going to join us. We'll talk about Team Canada, Team USA. I'm not sure whether we're going to getting some leaks by then. It was rumored. I know there was some sort of a congratulations, it seemed, at Flyers practice day for not only Konechny, but also Travis Sanheim. So take that for what it's worth. Kind of sounded like those guys might be getting props from their team for making Team Canada. I'm sure those calls are happening right now. Michael join us as well. And going to be a great week. Marty Baron on Wednesday. Craig Button coming on Thursday. And Hammer, who normally joins us on Friday, on the shelf today. So hopefully he's feeling better. He'll join us. Brandon Hacks on Friday. So a very, very busy rest of the week. But this was fun. Connor, great to have you on the program today. And no shortage of Jets topics or NFL topics to get to. And it was fun to sort of get the roundtable going again. We'll have to continue to do this on a more consistent basis on Mondays.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I think we went for over an hour of runtime with the roundtable, so maybe next week there'll be less to talk about. But I'm always game for coming on Mondays. I love it.
We will see. You know what? Next week I'll be traveling back from the Twin Cities, so you guys can hold it down. And then the 16th we'll do it for sure. And then we're gonna have to figure something else out for the 23rd because we're not doing it at 1. I don't want to do a pregame show essentially right before the Leafs, and then basically have it dated for the entire holidays. So I think we may have to think of it. It might be the WST Awards show. that we can put together over the course of the weekend and just have that up for everybody, and then take a few days off for friends and family for the holidays. And of course, watch the Jets and Leafs at 1 o'clock on the 23rd. Great stuff today. Connor, thanks again. Remo, great stuff. Thanks to everybody in chat. Very lively chat today. Thanks to Jamie Thomas for jumping on as well. Enjoy the Monday Nighter tonight, everybody. And we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow at 1. Thanks again to all the sponsors that make Winnipeg Sports Talk happen each and every day. Stay warm. Enjoy the game tonight. And we'll see you tomorrow at 1 right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Oh, my God. Oh! Shut it down. Let's go home.
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.